Chapter 501. For Mu Qingwu to say something like this, there was no doubt that this father and son pair knew about the betrayal of the imperial army. Even though he didn't know the truth, Long Tianma was even angrier. He slammed his fist on the table. You. Good. Very good. He and Mu Qingwu had done so much and had gained his father's trust in the beginning. However, after his father summoned the Mu family to ask about the betrayal of the imperial army, everything began to change. If it wasn't for the betrayal of the imperial army arousing his father's suspicion, things would not have developed to this point. If it was before, based on his father's trust in the Mu family, he wouldn't have stripped them of their military power so quickly just because of the gunpowder explosion in the armory. At least his father would still consider and hesitate. They could still fight for the time his father had to consider and hesitate. But now, the entire court was laughing at the Eastern Palace. Who didn't know that the emperor suppressing the Mu family was questioning the Eastern Palace? Seeing that General Mu still didn't speak, Long Tianma's face twisted in anger. He was about to flick his sleeves and leave when General Mu suddenly spoke up, "Your Highness, please calm your anger. This general has his own difficulties. Speak." Long Tianma forcefully suppressed his temper. But as soon as Great General Mu uttered a name, Long Tianma smashed the most precious gold-threaded cedar wood tea table in the general's estate with his fist. This name was without a doubt Mu Luiyue. Even though he was facing Mu Luiyue's father and brother, Long Tianma couldn't help but draw his sword. This prince will kill her. Mu Qingwu quickly stopped him. Actually, when he found out who the traitor of the imperial army was, he knew what was going on. That was why he didn't hesitate to kill him. As for the two captains in the imperial prison, they only obeyed and knew nothing, so they couldn't get anything out of them. Let go. Long Tianma's face sunk. General Mu kneeled in front of him. "Your Highness, please calm your anger. My unfilial daughter has done such a ridiculous and muddle-headed thing. This general really has no face to face you." Long Tianma snorted coldly. "You've kept it a secret until now. Do you still have any shame?" Mu Qingwu sighed deeply and knelt down as well. "Your Highness, my sister deserves to die 10,000 deaths, but she is the crown prince's wife." Upon hearing this, Long Tianma calmed down. Crown princess. How could he forget that Mu Luiyue had such a title? The crown prince consort, his woman, the mistress of the Eastern Palace. Mu Luiyue had committed a crime with such an identity, so it was destined that this matter had to be kept a secret. Otherwise, not only would the Mu family suffer, but even the Eastern Palace would suffer. Imperial father was already so suspicious. If she exposed Mu Luiyue, it would undoubtedly give Imperial father the opportunity to suppress him. "Your Highness, please don't lower yourself to Luiyue's level for the time being. When this matter is over, I will definitely teach her a lesson. Your Highness, the best thing to do now is to quickly find those crossbowmen. Otherwise, His Majesty will definitely pursue this matter." The Mu family's father and son both earnestly advised. Mu Qingwu wholeheartedly protected the overall situation, and General Mu also had some selfish motives. He was reluctant to part with his daughter. Long Tianma fell to the side, his heart extremely uncomfortable. The thing he regretted the most in his life, but also the thing he couldn't regret the most, was marrying Mu Luiyue. Of course, when he married Mu Luiyue, it was for the Mu family. Now that things had reached this point, it was time to let the Mu family play its true role. After a long silence, Long Tianma lowered his voice. "The two of you, rather than trembling in fear and being trampled on by others, why don't you?" He didn't continue speaking, but made a motion of drawing his sword. Without a doubt, this was an attempt to rebel. Mu Qingwu was shocked, but General Mu wasn't surprised. He had long guessed that this day would come, but he didn't expect it to come so soon. Neither father nor son said a word. Long Tianma lowered his voice even further. If we don't do it now, when will we? Once Imperial Father takes away all of your military power, it'll be too late for regrets. Unfortunately, the Mu family's father and son still remained silent. General Mu usually looked crude, impulsive, and had a bad temper, but he was still very cautious when it came to such important matters. The Mu family had been through 2 generations of Tianning's monarchs. They had been able to maintain a neutral stance in the past, win Emperor Tianhui's deep trust, and control such a large military power. This was enough to prove that General Mu wasn't simple. As for Mu Qingwu, his heart wasn't so complicated. He didn't want to be loyal to anyone but Tianning and the common people. Once there was internal strife, the ones who would suffer the most would be the innocent people. Long Tianma was well aware of the Mu family's attitudes. He remained silent, but he didn't stay silent to the end. Soon enough, he left behind a few words and strode away. He said, "Fine. Count it as this crown prince's loss this time. I'll put this debt on Mu Liyue's head." Long Tianma hadn't even left the courtyard when General Mu chased after him. "Your Highness Crown Prince. Your Highness Crown Prince, please wait." Mu Qingwu followed behind him, watching his father's once tall and sturdy figure become so haggard and old. A trace of sorrow rose in his heart. He also felt that Mu Liyue deserved to die for this matter. Unfortunately, he knew that his father wouldn't just sit by and watch. Liyue looked too much like his late mother. Moreover, no matter how much parents spoiled their children, it was still within reason. After all, they were blood relatives. Many times, Mu Qingwu would rather be born in a heartless and cold-blooded imperial family. That place didn't have the shackles of kinship. As soon as General Mu chased after him, Long Tianma knew he had a chance. He couldn't marry Mu Liyue for nothing. As expected, General Mu murmured, "Your Highness Crown Prince, this soldier will remember this matter in my heart." But the current Imperial Guard, before he could finish, Long Tianma laughed coldly. "Many of the Imperial Guards were promoted by your Mu family troops. Moreover, aren't the cannoneers in the Ministry of War's hands?" The wisest thing Emperor Tianhui had done in his life was to seize the chance to take back the cannoneers from General Mu's estate. This was something he'd wanted to do for a long time. But the stupidest thing he'd done was to hand over the cannoneers and gunpowder stores to the Minister of War. After all, the Minister of War had long been Long Tianma's man. When Chu Qingge had received a squad of archers as her dowry, it was the Minister of War who'd suggested leaving them at the borders under the command of the cavalry general Great General Ning. After the Minister of War's suggestion, the Crown Prince wanted to follow suit, but it was General Mu who told him to avoid suspicion. General Mu nodded helplessly, but he still couldn't make up his mind. "This is a serious matter, and it's come so suddenly. I ask that your Highness give this soldier some time to think it over." Long Tianma nodded. "Fine. This Crown Prince will give you time, but you should make your preparations by now." Everything had happened too suddenly. He never expected his imperial father to be so suspicious, but since his father would rather believe an outsider like Chu Qingge than him, then he shouldn't blame him for abandoning their father-son relationship. When the emperor had used his life to deal with the Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei, he'd forgotten about his imperial father in his heart. Just like that, the Eastern Palace and General Mu's estate began to make their preparations. The heavy responsibility of hunting down the archers fell to the new commander of the Imperial Guards, Meng Zhan. This man was loyal and devoted to Emperor Tianhui, and was known to be strict with his new post. He started a new round of manhunts that left everyone on edge. Emperor Tianhui doted on Chu Qingge again. He was already prepared for this, so after a round of pillow talk from Chu Qingge, he finally gave the Imperial Guards a special order to search the residences of the various members of the Imperial clan. After all, the imperial guards were limited in their search of the various residences before this. Once the news spread, all of the upper-class nobles were thrown into an uproar. Meanwhile, the Duke of Qin's estate was the quietest. Wang Fei wasn't at home, while His Highness Duke of Qin was in closed-door cultivation. Su Xiaoyu had returned because Pill Fiend Pharmacy had stopped working. She spent all day with Zhao Mama, the two of them looking at each other in silence. As for the Han estate, Han Yunxi hadn't said a word for days. To outsiders, it looked like she was hiding in her rooms to sleep, but in reality, she'd locked herself up in the large space of the detox system. Back in the black market, she'd mixed perplexing butterfly illusion and beauty's tears into the poison pond before leaving them in the detox system. She was supposed to hide in there for some peace and quiet, but discovered that the three poisons seemed to be reacting with each other. Although she wasn't sure what was going on, she could sense that the perplexing butterfly illusion's corrosive properties were weakening. Of course, there were plenty of other things she could do in the detox system, such as manually organizing the massive storehouse of medicinal ingredients. In the past, she'd make herself busy whenever she was in a bad mood. She'd be very busy, but the busier she was, the better she felt. That was why she couldn't care less about her moods. But damn it, why did she keep making mistakes this time? She'd actually messed up the orderly storehouse until it was a complete mess. In the end, she had no choice but to waste her brain power to have the system tidy things up. After that, she'd start messing around again, messing things up. If Long Feiyi found out one day that she was hiding in the Han estate, what would his reaction be? Today, Long Feiyi emerged from his closed-door cultivation, half of his injuries healed. As soon as he emerged, Chu Tianyin came with news. Your Highness, as you expected, the Chu clan has made their move. Are you done packing? Long Fei asked mildly. Everything's been packed, just. Chu Tianyin didn't dare to continue. Without a doubt, everything under His Highness's name had been taken care of except for one woman. It wasn't clear whether Long Feiyi knew what he meant, but he only said coldly, you should make preparations as well. Your lordship will leave the city tonight. All right, Chu Tianyin could only pretend he hadn't said a word. That night, something big happened at the general's estate. The commander of the Imperial Guards led a group of men to personally search the estate and found dozens of crossbow archers hiding in an abandoned latrine in the rear courtyard. Of course, the archers had fled, but Meng Zhan had personally shot two of them. News of this sent the entire city into an uproar. Meng Zhan sent men to chase after the archers while surrounding General Mu's estate. Emperor Tianhui was furious. That very night, he issued orders to strip the Mu father and son of their authority as generals, take back all command tokens, and imprison them in the justice courts to await trial. But just as the Mu father and son were being escorted to the imperial prisons, 3 cannon blasts came from outside the city. The cannoneers had rebelled first. For a moment, the entire capital city was thrown into chaos. The Mu father and son had no choice but to join forces with the old imperial guards and officially raise their troops on their way to the imperial prisons. When there was a mutiny in the capital, attacking the imperial palace was their first priority. Emperor Tianhui spat out a mouthful of blood in his imperial study. Fortunately, more than half of the imperial guards were on hand to hold back the enemy. Chu Qingge never expected things to get so serious, while the hidden Chu Tianyin was even more surprised. Everything had gone according to plan, but Long Tianma's move had ruined all of his efforts. Everyone fled in the chaos of the night, but the Han estate had long been deserted. Where was everyone? Chapter 502. Where were the Han family members? Where was Han Yunxi? When there was a coup d'état, it was common to take advantage of the chaos to burn, kill, and plunder. Amidst the chaos, Long Tianma still had the time to send people to protect her. Qin Wangfei had been living in the Han family for a few days, and those who cared about her knew about it. Unfortunately, Long Tianma's trusted aide came empty-handed. As soon as she left, Mu Qingwu sent over his trusted aide from the imperial army. Unfortunately, there was also no one to be seen. In reality, the first to arrive wasn't Long Tianma and Mu Qingwu's men, but Gu. However, Gu had already turned the Han family upside down, but there was no sign of Han Yunxi. Where was she? Of course, this group of people had all gone to the Duke of Qin's residence. Only then did they find out that the Duke of Qin's residence was also empty. Such a coincidence must have been the Duke of Qin's doing. Long Tianma and Mu Qingwu received this news just as they were about to attack the palace gates. Mu Qingwu didn't say anything, but Long Tianma sighed softly. All of this, in the end, it couldn't escape Imperial Uncle Qin's control. The Duke of Qin was able to leave the city early and evacuate so cleanly, leaving both residences empty. Without a doubt, he had long predicted that Long Tianma would raise an army to rebel and had long made preparations. Long Tianma finally understood why Imperial Father had made such a big move this time and put the Mu family to death. Imperial Uncle Qin must have played a part in this. He knew that in this game, he had also become Imperial Uncle Qin's chess piece, but he didn't care. Without Imperial Uncle Qin adding fuel to the fire, how could General Mu have been forced to jump over the wall? Everyone felt that this coup d'état was sudden, but he felt that it was too slow and too late. Resentment had been brewing in his heart for a long time. While they were attacking the palace gates, the sound of cannons came from the other side. Without a doubt, the city gates had been breached. Once the cannons arrived, they were invincible. Who could stop them? As the cannons rumbled, the morale of the Crown Prince's army was greatly boosted. The huge wooden stakes slammed into the thick and heavy palace gates with loud bangs. It looked like the gates were about to be smashed open. Inside the palace, Emperor Tianhui was sitting in his imperial study, but the various concubines and servants had long packed up their valuables and fled. Of course, there were plenty of loyal servants who stood guard outside the study, swearing to follow Emperor Tianhui to their deaths. Currently, a few important officials and the commander of the Imperial Guard, Meng Zhan, were all in the Imperial study, urging Emperor Tianhui to retreat. Emperor Tianhui's face was ashen white as blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He'd been plagued with illness for the past 6 months, but tonight's blow had aged him overnight. A man in his 40s looked even older than a man in his 50s or 60s. Hearing the chaos outside, the hands hidden in his sleeves trembled uncontrollably. Perhaps it was anger, or perhaps it was fear. Your Majesty, the palace gates are about to be breached. Let's go. Your Majesty, it'll be too late if we don't retreat now. The Crown Prince and the Mu family have committed treason and heresy. They have sent troops without justification and will definitely lose the support of the people. This humble subject boldly suggests that Your Majesty move the capital to Xijing and mobilize the elite troops from the central and western regions to surround the rebel army. Tonight, we've only lost a single city. Hearing Meng Zhan's words, Emperor Tianhui recovered from his shock. Meng Zhan was right. Tonight, they'd only lost the capital. If they didn't leave now, they'd lose all of Tianning. The Crown Prince had gained the upper hand in the capital only because he had the 1st Artillery Corps. But Tianning had more than one artillery corps. The capital, northwest, and central regions each had their own 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Artillery Corps. Although the Mu family had been in charge of the foot soldiers for years, not all of them were trusted subordinates of the Mu family. After the mutiny, the various generals stationed in the various regions would naturally choose a better tree to live in. Not all of them were under the Mu family's control. In the end, Emperor Tianhui was still able to stabilize the situation. He immediately ordered a retreat, but the palace had already been breached. Both the east and west gates had been blocked off, leaving only the north and south escape routes. In the midst of the chaos, Chu Qingge gave Emperor Tianhui an idea. Emperor Tianhui immediately decided to disguise himself as a eunuch and had Meng Zhan and the rest disguise themselves as his bodyguards. They mixed into the fleeing servants and escaped through the north gate. Meanwhile, all of the servants and family members were to escape through the south gate to lure away the rebel army. Just as Emperor Tianhui was about to leave, Chu Qingge stepped forward. "Your Majesty, Qinxia may be so bold as to make a presumptuous request." Faced with imminent disaster, Emperor Tianhui was in no mood to be good-tempered. "What is it?" he asked coldly. "Qinxia wants to disguise as you and head for the south gate. First, I'll lure away the crown prince and the rest. Second, I'll wait for a chance to kill them all," Chu Qingge said seriously. At her words, everyone remembered that this noble consort knew martial arts as well. Moreover, her archery skills were top-notch. Finding a eunuch to pretend to be Emperor Tianhui to lure away the rebel army might not buy them much time. If Chu Qingge was the one doing the job, she might even have a chance to turn the tables. Once the crown prince died, the dragons would be leaderless and the situation would be completely different. Emperor Tianhui was thrilled. "All right. As long as you kill that unfilial son for Jin, you'll be Tianning's empress." Empress? Chu Qingge's heart filled with bitterness. She wanted nothing more than for Emperor Tianhui to die in the chaos, but she had no choice but to protect him. If for no other reason than the fact that she wasn't pregnant with Tianhui's child yet. "As long as your Majesty is safe and sound, Qinxia will be perfectly satisfied," Chu Qingge said against her will. Emperor Tianhui was deeply moved. He gripped Chu Qingge's hand tightly and said, "Qing, Shen will wait for you at the Seven-Li Bridge outside the city." Chu Qingge nodded and slipped his hand out of her grasp. Then she turned and left. The flames of war in the capital city burned for days and nights. Rumors said that on the night of the rebellion, the crown prince hadn't even caught up to Emperor Tianhui before he was ambushed by a high-level expert. Fortunately, a group of black-robed guards helped him survive. Another rumor said that General Mu had caught up to Emperor Tianhui himself and killed him at the south gate. Another rumor said that Emperor Tianhui hadn't died, but had long escaped from the north gate. Instead, it was General Mu who'd been killed by Meng Zhan in the chaos. The flames of war burned for 5 days and 5 nights. As the capital city grew calm, many of the preposterous rumors were dispelled. Actually, Emperor Tianhui had successfully escaped from the capital while Chu Qingge had run into General Mu. Both of them had been injured in their duel. While Emperor Tianhui was still on his way to West Jing, the crown prince had declared himself emperor in the capital city. On one hand, he continued to chase after Emperor Tianhui, while on the other, he actively recruited powerful officials and local powers. While the capital was in chaos, Tianning's various powers began to express their views. Some denounced the crown prince, some pledged their support to Emperor Tianhui, while others supported the crown prince and defected to Tianhui's side. Still, it was impossible to ignore the fact that the powers of the central regions and Jiangnan, whether it was the military or the large counties and prefectures, all pushed His Highness Duke of Qin forward and supported him as emperor. Hearing the news, Emperor Tianhui viciously smashed a teacup in his carriage. Duke of Qin. He seemed to suddenly realize something as rage filled his heart. It took him a long time to recover before he spat up a mouthful of blood and fainted. Imperial Physician Gu. Quick, find Imperial Physician Gu. Chu Qingge shouted. But no one found Gu Beiyue, the Imperial Physician. Nobody knew that Gu Beiyue had been the first to leave the palace on the night of the coup. Although Long Tianma had long expected this, he still couldn't help but clench his fists when he heard the news. His expression was gloomy for days. After all, Tianning's central regions only had 3 prefectures, but they were all extremely large and populous. Meanwhile, Tianning's Jiangnan was not only Tianning's most fertile land, but also the richest in all of Cloud Realm continent. It was a land of fish and rice, rich in natural resources. In other words, it had a lot of people and plenty of grain. Father and son had fought each other to the death, but the Duke of Qin had gotten the most out of it without any effort at all. Emperor Tianhui denounced Long Tianma and the Mu family for treason and heresy for usurping the throne. Long Tianma immediately retorted by accusing Emperor Tianhui of listening to slander and failing to distinguish right from wrong by framing and killing loyal subjects. Father and son fought each other to death, but the Duke of Qin didn't say a word. He kept a low profile, but his voice was the loudest and most popular. A month later, Tianning's situation had settled. Emperor Tianhui had taken control of the 10 prefectures in the northwest from West Liang and used the name of Tianning. Long Tianma had taken over the capital and 7 prefectures in the northeast and used the name of Tianan. Meanwhile, the central and southern regions remained as they were. No one dared to seek refuge with Tianning or Tianan, much less rise up in rebellion. Very soon, rumors began to spread that the Duke of Qin would attack the capital and swallow up the 10 prefectures in the northwest. Both Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma grew restless, while the armies of Jiangnan and the central regions grew restless. But, in reality, no one knew where His Highness Duke of Qin was. After that night in the capital, His Highness Duke of Qin seemed to have vanished into thin air. He never showed his face in public again. Meanwhile, Han Yunxi was still sitting in her carriage. She knew what was going on as soon as she saw the chaos in the capital. It wasn't because she was smart, but because she'd gotten a good grasp of Long Fei Ye's methods after interacting with him for so long. When she overheard the conversation between Long Fei Yi and Emperor Tianhui in the imperial study, she already knew which move the Long Fei Yi would make. She was about to tell 7th Madam to pack up and leave when the Bailey Army's mermaid soldiers suddenly appeared and took them out of the city via the waterways. After leaving the city, 7th Madam and the rest were arranged to take a different route while she boarded the carriage alone. The mermaid soldiers said that His Highness Duke of Qin wanted to see her. Who knew that they'd end up traveling for an entire month towards the south? It was more like a sightseeing trip, with beautiful scenery along the way. Occasionally, they'd hear news about Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma, but Han Yunxi wasn't in the mood to pay attention to such details. She was very quiet the entire time. At first, she didn't ask any questions, but allowed the mermaid soldiers to arrange things. All she did was follow them, and when she was bored, she'd hide in the detox system and sleep for an entire afternoon. But gradually, she couldn't take it anymore. Long Fei Yi said he wanted to see her, but where was he? Where was he? Where was he? She asked the mermaid soldiers multiple times, but none of them knew. All they said was that His Highness Duke of Qin had ordered them to head toward South Ning Prefecture. Didn't that bastard allow her to go back to the Han estate? Why was he still looking for her? If he wanted to find her, then so be it. Why did he have her head south for so long without showing his face? Just what did he want? Han Yunxi was so angry that she almost poisoned the mermaid soldiers and fled, but she didn't. Instead, she grew even more taciturn and didn't ask any questions. Until one day, the carriage slowly came to a stop in front of an estate. "Esteemed Wang Fei, please get off the carriage," the mermaid soldier reported in a low voice. Han Yunxi had just emerged from the detox system and was still groggy. She got off the carriage as soon as she heard the words "get off," but she froze when she saw the familiar doors. Chapter 503. Aside from the Duke of Qin's estate, this was the place where Han Yunxi had lived the longest. Even the Han estate couldn't compare to this place. Han Yunxi stood at the entrance, staring blankly at the large horizontal board. Here, he had stood behind her and recited the poem Divinator. Praise of the plum blossoms. Here, he had asked her what was precious. She had replied, if one wishes to obtain the heart of one, they will never part even when their hair turns white. Here, she had gotten used to leaning on his shoulder to sleep. He had accompanied her through Tianning's coldest winter. This was the famous Jiangnan Plum Blossom Sea, the most famous of Jiangnan's 3 great gardens. It was named after the plum blossoms that bloomed like a sea every winter and spring. This place was the New Year's gift from Long Fei Yi to her. She had kept the command tablet in her medical pouch. Everything from last winter was still vivid in her mind. When she left, she had wondered if she could stay for another season, but, Long Fei Yi, summer hasn't even passed yet. How did we become like this? Are you in the estate? Esteemed Wang Fei, please. The mermaid soldier presented the command tablet to the Plum Blossom Gardens, interrupting Han Yunxi's thoughts. Without a doubt, the medical pouch was in his hands. He had taken the command tablet out of it. Han Yunxi was silent for a long time before she finally asked, is His Highness inside? Esteemed Wang Fei, please forgive me. This subordinate isn't clear. This subordinate only received orders to send you here yesterday, the mermaid soldier replied truthfully. Han Yunxi silently took the command tablet and stepped into Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea. Once inside, she hurried towards the small hot springs. She didn't know why she was in such a rush, but she was. She had almost rushed to the small hot springs when she came to an abrupt halt at the entrance. Only when she saw the emptiness of the small building did she regain her senses. He wasn't here. She smiled faintly, laughing at her own impatience. What was there to be anxious about? What was the difference between seeing him and not seeing him? He probably didn't want to see her, right? Otherwise, he would have come after promising her for a month, no matter how busy he was. But why did he leave her here in the Plum Blossom Sea? She couldn't even get him, so what was the point of these worldly things? Han Yunxi found a mermaid soldier. Where is the Han family? His Highness has already arranged a residence in the South Ning County. Princess Consort, please be at ease. The mermaid soldier honestly replied. Prepare the car. I'm going to South Ning, Han Yunxi said calmly. The mermaid soldiers did not receive any orders from His Highness, so they could only listen to their mistress. However, just as the carriage was ready, the sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. Thunder rumbled, and a torrential downpour was imminent. Han Yunxi could only wait for the rain to stop. She sat on the doorstep and watched the rain get heavier. She unconsciously fell into a daze again. She didn't know that Long Fei Yi had been watching her from a distance. Over the past month, Tianning had been in turmoil, but this ruler of all things had done nothing. He had followed Han Yunxi's carriage from north to south, protecting her in secret and keeping her company in silence. He clearly said that he wanted to see her, and he clearly saw her all the time, but she didn't know. At this moment, she didn't know if he was looking at the rain, at her, or at a daze. His dark eyes were as deep and unfathomable as the sea. His brows were furrowed like swords. He could control the entire world, but not a single woman. Suddenly, a white shadow flew past Han Yunxi's back. Sensing the movement, Han Yunxi immediately turned back. Long Fei Yi wanted to leave, but it was too late. Han Yunxi had caught him red-handed. Lil Thing was panting as it pounced nearby. It had been struggling for a month to lure Mama Yunxi to see Papa Long, but had never found a chance. The rain had finally given it a chance. It only hoped that the next time Papa Long grabbed it by the tail, it wouldn't end up in such a miserable state. Han Yunxi never expected to see Long Fei Yi like this. She gave a start, feeling like she was dreaming. When she turned back, she saw him right behind her. Long Fei glanced in the direction Lil Thing had flown off in before letting Han Yunxi look on without batting an eyelid. Damn it, the two of them were silent as soon as they met. In the end, Long Fei simply turned to leave. You, stop right there. Han Yunxi said coldly. Long Fei really did stop, his back especially silent. What did you find me for? Han Yunxi asked mildly. Long Fei didn't reply. After standing there for a while, he prepared to leave. Han Yunxi watched him leave step by step before chasing after him into the rain. She reached him and threw the Plum Garden command token at him. Give me back my medical pouch. Long Fei didn't catch it, but the ceramic command token shattered into pieces. He looked down at the same time she did the same. Her palms began to ache as she stared at the fragments. Fine, he finally spoke. She looked up at him, only to see him as usual, his face cold and still. Your lordship will go get it. When will you bring it? I want to leave this place. She said cold. He was silent for a while before replying mildly, I don't know. After saying that, he really left, disappearing into the curtain of rain. Han Yunxi stood in the rain in a daze. She felt like the whole world was raining, and it was raining cats and dogs. After the rain, Long Fei disappeared, and Han Yunxi fell seriously ill. She had a severe cold and a high fever. The servant found a physician to take her pulse and prescribe medicine. Unfortunately, when the servant brought the medicine to her mouth, she flung it away and broke 3 big bowls in the morning. In the end, he had appeared. She woke up in a daze and saw him sitting by the bed, looking at her gently. She thought that she was dreaming again and quickly closed her eyes, afraid that she would wake up. Drink the medicine. She woke up the moment he spoke. When she saw his silent face, she knew that this wasn't a dream. He personally fed the medicine to her mouth. She turned her head away, refusing to look at him. He still fed her the medicine, but she angrily picked it up and smashed it on the ground. Long Fei, what do you want? Drink the medicine, he said mildly. Answer my question, she said angrily. After waiting for a month, he didn't say anything when they met and didn't allow her to leave. Was he playing with her? She had a high fever, and when she got angry, her face turned even redder. Just as she finished speaking, she coughed violently, coughing so hard that her heart and lungs hurt. His tone was anxious. Drink the medicine first, then I'll answer you. What if I don't? She challenged him coldly. It wasn't that she was arrogant, but that she was so angry that she didn't feel well. He didn't say anything and suddenly drank a big mouthful of medicine. Then, he grabbed her chin and fiercely sealed her mouth, passing the medicine over. She struggled desperately and hit him, but he didn't let go. After he finished feeding her the medicine in her mouth, he drank another big mouthful and continued. She was so angry that she threw a punch and accidentally hit him in the chest. At that moment, he immediately let go of her and turned his head away, spitting out a mouthful of blood. His internal injury had only recovered by 50%. How could he withstand such a close distance and a punch to the injury? She was instantly stunned. She stared blankly at his face that suddenly turned pale, not knowing what to do. What happened to him? He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and continued to feed her the medicine. Finish it. Long Fei, you're injured. She exclaimed. Although she didn't understand, she guessed that it was an internal injury when she saw that he didn't seem to be hurt. His martial arts were so good, so how could he have an internal injury? Who did it? How much strength could her fist have? Just one punch was enough to make him spit out blood. How serious was his injury? He ignored her question and was as stubborn as a child, refusing to give up. Finish it. What happened to you? What happened? Tell me. What have you been doing for the past month? She anxiously pushed his hand away and wanted to check his chest, but he stubbornly brought the medicine over. Finish it. Long Fei, what happened to you? Tell me. Han Yunxi cried, her tears falling. At this moment, the fear and grievances of the past month all came rushing up. Long Fei, what happened to you? What's wrong? He hastily wiped away her tears, but there was no end to them. I'm fine, he said mildly. Liar. She was so fierce. He clearly spat out blood, so how could he be fine? I'm really fine. Be good and drink the medicine first. He was still worried about the medicine. He couldn't ruin his body after all this time. I won't drink it. He couldn't do anything about her stubbornness, so he could only reply. Kenzo's men hurt me. It's nothing serious. Your master. Han Yunxi was stunned. Duan Muyao couldn't hurt him. Few people in Tianshan Kenzo could either. Why did he leave with Duan Muyao that day in such a hurry? He didn't even explain himself, and didn't even let her follow him. No, it was martial uncle, Zhangqiuzi, he said mildly. If it wasn't about master, he would be willing to tell her. As for master, he wouldn't tell her, nor would he let her see him. What happened? Han Yunxi asked seriously. The internal strife between the sects has already been resolved. He was so calm and collected. If he'd fought with Zhangqiuzi, he wouldn't have been injured so badly. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me anything? She demanded. Things happened so suddenly, so speaking, he offered her the medicine again. I won't drink it. She pushed it aside. I'll take a look at your injuries. Drink the medicine first, he said seriously. She knitted her brows, her eyes red with tears as she didn't move. Helpless, he could only set the medicine down and take off his robes. Even after so long, she could still see the handprint on his chest, a testament to Zhangqiuzi's ruthlessness. Her heart ached at the sight, but she didn't dare to touch him for fear of hurting him. Just then, I really deserve to die. Drink the medicine first, won't you? He was close to begging her. He'd never begged anyone in his life before. The 3 prefectures of the central region and the 15 cities of Jiangnan were all waiting for his command, but here he was begging a woman to drink medicine. But this woman refused to drink it. You suspect that Gu and I aren't innocent. You're looking down on me. This wasn't a question, but a definite accusation. His hands stiffened. No, he said quickly. But he quickly added, I can't kill you, but I'll kill Gu Qishao. He did mind. I didn't do it on purpose. Back then. She hastily explained the situation to him. For the sake of avoiding that black-robed expert, she and Gu had no choice but to do so. Later on, she dressed Gu's wounds before putting on her clothes properly. That wasn't on purpose at all. Leaving aside the fact that it was her savior who'd been hurt, even if it wasn't, she couldn't care less in such an urgent situation. Gu's injuries were too severe, so saving him was a race against time. Despite her explanations, his face was still gloomy. I'll never forgive you. Drink the medicine. Chapter 504. I'll never forgive you. With a single sentence, he pronounced Han Yunxi's death sentence. Her eyes were red from crying as she stared at him innocently, as if she didn't understand the meaning of his words. Drink the medicine, he urged again. Whether Tianning was in chaos or Cloud Realm continent, the most important thing in the world was the bowl of medicine in his hands. Han Yunxi stared at him for a long time, her lips pursed tightly. She didn't speak or drink. Long Fei Yi was probably the most patient person in his life. Be good, don't make a fuss. The edge of the bowl was already pressed against Han Yunqi's lips, but she still didn't move. Drink it. He lowered his eyes, his temper so good that it seemed like he would never lose his temper. Only then did she speak. I really didn't do it on purpose. He avoided the topic. Drink the medicine. Will you forgive me? She asked seriously. There was no room for discussion, so he shook his head. She suddenly took the medicine and drank it all in one gulp. I finished drinking it. This, Long Fei Yi was surprised and startled. He should have sighed in relief when she finished the medicine, but now his heart felt even more stifled. I finished it all, Han Yunqi said again. Long Fei Yi replied mildly. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqi said, you can leave now. Just who was sentencing who to death? Long Fei Yi stood rooted to the ground. Han Yunqi ignored him and lay down, covering herself with the covers and closing her eyes to sleep. The already quiet room grew even quieter, like a silent time. After a long time, Long Fei Yi finally got up. Was he really leaving? Yes, he was really leaving. He turned to leave, step by step, away from the bed. Han Yunqi stole a glance and was about to get up when Long Fei Yi suddenly stopped. She hastily shut her eyes. Long Fei Yi stood at the same spot for a while before returning to sit by the bed. However, he did not speak and only looked at her. Not long after, Han Yunqi opened her eyes. Just as she was about to speak, he said, I'll leave after you recover. Under the silk quilt, her hands were clenched tightly, but she replied nonchalantly, sure. He stayed just like that. This was like an unspoken agreement. He didn't mention anything about Gu, and she didn't chase after him to ask if he forgave her. He stayed by her bedside the entire day. Not only did he personally feed her medicine, he even fed her 3 meals. Every hour, he would touch her forehead to check if her fever had subsided. She was lying down, and he was sitting. The two of them did not speak for the entire day, but it was not awkward at all. At night, her fever had not completely subsided. He gently touched her forehead, as if he could not feel it. He leaned close to her and gently lifted her bangs. He pressed his face against her forehead to feel her temperature, and casually said, it seems to be quite hot. His smooth chin was right above the tip of her nose. At such a close distance, she could smell the most familiar scent. She said, it should have subsided. I'll be fine tomorrow after a good night's sleep. Don't worry. He retreated, not forgetting to tidy up her bangs. His slender and good-looking fingers gently played with her hair. It was so gentle that it did not seem like him, Long Fei Yi. It was clearly just a small amount of bangs, but he fiddled with them for a long time. She did not move or make a sound, allowing him to do as he pleased. In the end, he still had to stop. Once he let go, her heart felt empty. Let me see the wound on your shoulder. He actually remembered it all along. It's healed. There's only a little scar left. It had been a month, and the white-clothed gentleman's medicine was very effective. Let this prince take a look. He insisted. She could only take off her clothes and reveal her shoulder. As she said, the wound had completely healed, leaving only a shallow scar. He gently caressed it. She turned her head away, afraid that she would succumb to the gentleness in his hands. I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. He said mildly. After a while, she said, it's okay. I forgive you. His hand froze on her shoulder. She pushed it away without a trace, put on her clothes, and lazily snuggled into the blankets. Aren't you going to treat your wound? She asked. Wait until you're asleep. He said. Thus, she immediately turned her back to him to sleep. He sat cross-legged on a short couch and treated his wound for an entire night. She kept her eyes open until dawn with her back facing him. They had agreed that they would leave once they were well. No matter how severe the typhoid or cold was, it would always get better, right? She turned over and saw him looking at her. Just like last night, he leaned over and pressed his cold cheek against her forehead. It subsided. He was very sure. She coughed a few times. She was very clear that as long as she took her medicine on time, she would be fine in at most 3 days. Let the doctor take a look again, he said again. She answered mildly. When the doctor came, he actually said that her body was in good condition. He said that she would be fine after taking her medicine for another day. Her originally weak body had long been nourished by him using old hens and lobsters. Moreover, the medicine that the doctor prescribed for her were all treasures that took effect quickly. It was really impossible for her to stay sick forever. She was originally not someone who could lie down. She could clearly get out of bed, but she lay down for another day. On this day, he even personally attended to her. Not a single servant girl was allowed to enter. After feeding her medicine, he sat at the side and treated her wound. She quietly looked at him. Suddenly, she had an illusion that they were back in the cold winter of last year. 100 steps. Compared to this time, which was closer and which was further? The next morning, Han Yunxi fully recovered. She decisively got out of bed and said straightforwardly, "Long Fei Yi, I'm fine." Oh. Long Fei Yi nodded. After a moment, he took out a command token. It was none other than the Plum C command token that had been smashed into pieces. He had actually fixed it back together. Although it was full of cracks, it was still intact. He said, "If you don't want to return to the Duke of Qin's residence, how about returning to Jiangnan's Plum Sea?" Han Yunxi's heart clenched slightly. Looking at Long Fei Ye's face, which had been silent for 2 days, she felt her heart ache for no reason. Jiangnan's Plum Sea already belonged to her, but it was still given to her by him. Was it any different from returning to the Duke of Qin's residence? Okay. She agreed just like that and took back the command token. He lowered his head and turned to leave. He left. He left just like that. Bastard. You really left when I told you to. Han Yunxi's heart fiercely skipped a beat. Without thinking, she chased after Long Fei Yi from behind and hugged him tightly around his waist. "If you'll never forgive me, can you pretend to forgive me for a while?" He pulled her hand as if to pull it away. She hugged him even tighter in fright. "Can I?" Long Fei Yi still pulled her away and turned around to look at her with furrowed brows. Han Yunxi was flustered. Her heart felt stifled, and even breathing became difficult. He actually looked helpless as he said mildly, "This prince only wants to get the medical kit. You, don't be anxious." Han Yunxi was stunned on the spot. She suddenly didn't know what to say. Long Fei Yi couldn't help but stroke her bangs when he saw her dazed expression. "Since you want to pretend, then pretend for the rest of your life." Han Yunxi almost cried. He shouldn't bully her like this. She was really frightened. "Long Fei Yi, how can you be so bad?" She was about to cry, but he still asked her seriously, "What do you think, is this okay?" She didn't say anything and just looked at him. She was clearly about to cry, but she smiled. He still held her hand like before, their fingers intertwined as they strolled through the plum blossom forest. She was still panicking as she sorted out her messy thoughts. She thought that she really, really liked this man. Otherwise, why didn't she just walk away? Why would she be bullied to this extent? She looked up and saw his naturally cold side profile. At this moment, what was he thinking? "Long Fei Yi," she spoke softly. Many years later, she would forget that it was from this moment onwards that she no longer called this man, Your Highness, but directly called him by his name. He looked over. What are you thinking about? After the quarrel, she was less cautious than before. I'm thinking about the antidote for broomcorn millet poison. Do you believe me? Long Fei Yi said mildly. Han Yunxi only remembered this matter now. Gu's words were still ringing in her ears, and Long Fei Yi's attitude was like this. Who should she believe? Long Fei Yi stopped and asked forcefully, Do you believe me? Believe what? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded. Han Yunxi looked back and saw the Tang clan's young head, Tang Li, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. This fellow was still dressed in white and had an immortal-like temperament, but he still ruined his good temperament with a single word. Han Yunxi, you're finally not throwing a tantrum anymore? Tang Li asked with a smile. Han Yunxi not only pretended not to hear, but also not to see him. She turned her head away and ignored him. Han Yunxi, Aunt Ru was right to scold you. You're a femme fatale. Do you know how many people in Jiangnan and the central regions are waiting for my brother to declare himself an emperor and establish a country? Tang Li was about to continue when Long Fei Yi's cold gaze silenced him. Han Yunxi said coldly, Your brother won't declare himself an emperor, much less establish a country. You're thinking too much. A trifling 3 prefectures in the central regions and 15 cities in Jiangnan were nothing in Long Fei Yi's eyes. If he wanted to declare himself an emperor and establish a country, he'd have to conquer all of Cloud Realm continent. Long Fei Yi looked at Han Yunxi with interest. How did you know? Your Highness, the 3 prefectures in the central regions and the 15 cities in Jiangnan have long been under your control. What difference does it make whether you make a move or not? If you don't declare yourself an emperor and establish a country, you'll be able to give Long Tianma and Tianhui some thought. Who wouldn't covet the people in the central regions and Jiangnan's granary? Han Yunxi smiled as she spoke. Anyone who covets the things in someone else's hands will be used by that person. Long Fei Yi applauded Han Yunxi 3 times. Although he didn't say anything, he'd already made his stance clear. Besides this woman, there was probably no one else who could read his thoughts so thoroughly. He could have used Long Tianma and the Mu family to take over all of Tianning, but he wasn't in a rush. Without Emperor Tianhui and Long Tianma, who would help him deal with Western Zhou and Northern Li. Tang Li didn't have such a good head for politics, but he understood after listening to Han Yunxi's analysis. He sighed with emotion. Han Yunxi, you really aren't stupid except when you're jealous. If you get jealous so easily, you might turn into an idiot. You. Han Yunxi grew angry. Oh, that's right. You turn into an idiot too when you're bewitched by a man's charms. Tang Li couldn't seem to stop teasing her. Try spouting more nonsense. Han Yunxi narrowed her eyes dangerously. How am I spouting nonsense? Just then, you were talking about Gu, weren't you? You're so smart, but you still can't figure it out. Gu Qishao had purposely mixed in the powder that would turn the bottle black. You're saying he just wants to keep the antidote for himself. He's clearly plotting to drive a wedge between the two of you, Tang Li said seriously. Chapter 505. What was Gu's motive for doing this? Han Yunxi frowned and stared at Tang Li. Tang Li asked again, he obviously knew what you were capable of, yet he added so much powder. He obviously did it on purpose to lure you over. Let's take a step back and say that if my brother really lied to you, he really knew something. Why didn't he just show you the evidence directly? Why did he go through so much trouble? That guy is just trying to drive a wedge between you and me. Han Yunxi's expression was complicated. Long Fei Yi remained silent. Tang Li's words were not false at all. That was exactly what Gu meant. And it was precisely because of this that Gu suffered a tragedy in this matter. Han Yunxi had already considered these 2 points. After listening to Tang Li's analysis, the scales in her heart finally tilted. If there were suspicions, Gu was indeed more suspicious. Han Yunxi did not say anything for a long time. Long Feiyi stared at her with his lips pursed tightly. He looked quite serious. So I'm not talking nonsense, right? Tang Li pulled the topic back and sighed. My brother is so good-looking. How can he lose to Gu? Even if you're seduced by men, you'll still be seduced by my brother. This time, Han Yunxi narrowed her eyes again. However, Tang Li seemed to be addicted to talking. He said again, Han Yunxi, you're a married woman. You have to take. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly could not make a sound. His mouth kept moving. He tried his best to say something, but he could not make a single sound. Was he mute? Han Yunxi glanced at him and said coldly, your mouth must be tired from talking so much. Take a rest. We'll talk again tomorrow. After she finished speaking, she held Long Feiyi's hand. Let's go and get the medical kit. Would Long Feiyi save Tang Li? Obviously not. Although Tang Li had helped him with Gu's matter, he still felt that Tang Li talked too much. Han Yunxi held on to Long Feiyi's hand and walked at a leisurely pace. As she walked, her mind wandered. She was undoubtedly pondering about the antidote for the broomcorn millet poison. Long Feiyi did not say anything. He knew that Tang Li's words were enough. Gu had the ability to find out that Mute Granny was imprisoned by him in the U Pavilion, but he did not directly bring Han Yunxi there. There was no doubt that he wanted to hide his abilities. Why didn't he reveal his true abilities after being shot by the crossbowman like a hedgehog? What does it have to do with Medical City or the poison Gu humans if he didn't die after being stabbed in the heart? He was very interested. Long Feiyi didn't ask about the antidote to broomcorn millet poison, and Han Yunxi didn't mention it again. Perhaps she already had a judgment in her heart. Was Mute Granny's matter over just like that? Or perhaps the truth would come to light one day. To Long Feiyi and Gu, who was the 10% antidote to broomcorn millet poison a blessing or a curse? The truth would come to light one day. The only thing she was certain of was that something big had happened between Long Fei and Gu Qixiao. After Han Yunxi got the medical kit, she took out a bottle of vitality-stabilizing medicinal pills and gave it to Long Feiyi. She couldn't help with his internal injuries, but she should at least nourish his body. The next day, the mute Tang Li was finally liberated and could speak again. He was so frightened that he decided to stay 10 steps away from Han Yunxi whenever he saw her in the future. What do you mean by, only vile people and women are hard to raise? It's just that the Duke of Qin's women are hard to raise. Too scary. Brother, you better be careful in the future. She might poison you to death one day, Tang Li reminded him seriously. Long Feiyi pretended not to hear him and asked cold, how's my master? Same as always. Tang Li immediately denied it. No, no. It's a lot better than before because Duan Muyao is here. Long Feiyi banged the table heavily and didn't say anything. Brother, Tian Shan Kenzo's matter is more troublesome than usual. It's better if you don't get involved. Tang Li wasn't joking. Long Feiyi nodded and asked, is there any progress with the 100 Poison sect? Tang Li shook his head. Even the Wang family can't get in touch with the person who snuck in. I think things aren't looking good. Jun Yixia hadn't made any moves since leaving Fishery Island. This made Long Feiyi rather uneasy, but he still couldn't make up his mind to deal with any changes. Perhaps it was a good thing that Jun Yixia wasn't making any moves. At least he had time to finish playing Tianing's game of chess. While Tianing was still in turmoil, Long Feiyi and Han Yunxi had settled down in Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea. Unlike last winter's cautiousness, Han Yunxi was more or less acting like a lady of the house. Long Feiyi had given her a group of shadow guards, and she'd stolen a large batch of hidden weapons from Tang Li. After dipping them in poison, she gave them to the shadow guards and taught them some basic poison arts. Of course, while she was busy, she was also quietly studying the perplexing butterfly illusion. Long Feiyi, on the other hand, spent most of his time recuperating from his injuries besides brewing tea and reading scrolls. It was already good enough that he hadn't succumbed to qi deviation, but it'd take him at least 2 to 3 months to fully recover. By then, Han Yunxi's poison guards had finished training. Long Feiyi's injuries were more or less healed, and Tianning's situation had more or less stabilized. The north was divided into 2 countries, with the Shaoshui River as the boundary. West of the river was Tianning, whose capital was West Jing. East of the river was Tianan, whose capital had been renamed Tianan City. Emperor Tianhui had made Chu Qingge empress and received the support of the Western Zhou emperor. Rumors had it that Chu Qingge was pregnant with a dragon seed, but only the people involved knew the truth. Long Tianma had made Mu Luiyue empress, while the empress from the western mountains had been brought back to the palace. Rumors had it that Mu Luiyue and the empress were living together, but that remained to be seen. Today, Long Feiyi asked Han Yunxi, "Are you willing to go back to the estate?" Go back to the estate. Han Yunxi was surprised. Although Long Tianma had confiscated many of Tianan's estates, he hadn't touched the Duke of Qin's estate. He didn't dare to. Han Yunxi had even heard that the Han estate was fine and that no one had dared to barge in. Even if Long Tianma came to invite him, Long Feiyi wouldn't go back at a time like this, much less Long Tianma's absence. Go back to the estate. Back to which estate? Do you want to go back? Long Feiyi asked again. This fellow still remembered how she'd returned to her parents' home in a fit of pique. Of course, let's go. Han Yunxi didn't ask, waiting to see where he'd take her. Unexpectedly, Long Feiyi really did take her out the door. The late autumn winds were strong. He untied his cloak and wrapped it around her. Just like before, he led her into the carriage. Only after the carriage had gone far away did a fiery red figure appear on the high walls of Jiangnan's Plum Sea. His red robes were like fire, fluttering in the wind. Who else could it be but Gu? Inside the carriage, Long Fei was the same as before. He ignored her as he leaned back in his seat and flipped through a few secret missives. She burrowed into his arms and read with him. These letters came from Northern Li, Western Zhou, Medicine City, and even Medical City. It had to be said that this fellow had eyes and ears all over Cloud Realm continent. Soon, they entered southern Ning City. As soon as the carriage stopped, there was a commotion all around. Han Yunxi got off her horse to take a look and gave a start. In front of her was a brand new estate. 2 large lions stood at the entrance, and the 4-meter-wide vermilion door exuded a dignified aura. The plaque above the door clearly read Duke of Qin's estate. Return to the Duke of Qin's estate. How did she become so stupid? Han Yunxi suddenly realized that some of Tang Li's words seemed to make a bit of sense. Long Feiyi didn't proclaim himself emperor, nor did he divide his power. Instead, he built a Duke of Qin's estate in southern Ning, the largest prefecture in the central region. This made those people ponder over his intentions. Han Yunxi didn't have time to look, because a group of people had already gathered around them. Among them were high-ranking officials, military generals, and even some of the more influential and famous families. Long Feiyi's estate was originally a temporary imperial residence. Since the renovation started 2 to 3 months ago, this group of people had been guarding it every day, waiting for him to show his face. The central region and Jiangnan were like a group of dragons without a leader. This group of people had been waiting for the stars and the moon. Finally, their master had arrived. There were at least 10 people, and all of them had prominent statuses. Unfortunately, Long Fei Yi dismissed them with a single sentence. This prince is used to being idle and can't manage such a big matter. You can all go back. While everyone was still in shock, Long Fei Yi had already led Han Yunxi into the estate. Han Yunxi inadvertently turned around to take a look. She unexpectedly met many reproachful and resentful gazes. She couldn't help but shiver. She thought that Long Fei Yi was so idle, so there were probably many people who scolded her for being a femme fatale. This estate wasn't as big as the Duke of Qin's estate in Tianan City. It also wasn't divided into many courtyards. There was only one independent courtyard named Leisurely Cloud Courtyard. However, everything in Leisurely Cloud Courtyard was exactly the same as the Hibiscus Courtyard. There was a mysterious palace and a loft. As soon as Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi arrived, Zhao Mama and the rest arrived as well. Each of them was happier than the other when they saw Han Yunxi. Although they didn't know how their mistresses had made up, it was good enough, wasn't it? Han Yunxi happily settled in. A few days later, all 3 clans in Medicine City sent letters asking to meet with Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi. Without a doubt, they were here for the sake of Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Han Yunxi hadn't forgotten about Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but she didn't know how to tell Long Fei about it. After all, Pill Fiend Pharmacy involved Gu Qishao, who seemed to have gone missing. Even now, there was no news of him. After reading the letter, Long Fei generously sent Chu Shifeng to Pill Fiend Valley to deliver the message to Gu Qishao. If he didn't show up, then they'd have full authority over Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Han Yunxi looked at Long Fei Yi and wanted to say something, but didn't in the end. Her heart was filled with complicated feelings towards Gu Qishao. Leaving aside everything else, Gu Qishao had at least saved her life. If possible, Han Yunxi didn't want to lose him as a friend. Very soon, Chu Shifeng returned. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, Gu isn't at Medicine Ghost Valley, but he left word that he won't care about Pill Fiend Pharmacy anymore. He only needs to deliver the silver to Medicine Ghost Valley on time. This doesn't seem like Gu's style at all. Someone come, invite the 3 clans of Medicine City to meet with South Ning's Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Long Fei Yi ordered. Now Han Yunxi was astonished. Since when did South Ning have a Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Tianan City's Pill Fiend Pharmacy hadn't even been built yet. Today, Long Fei Yi brought her to a large, nameless estate near the Duke of Qin's estate. It had a spacious storefront, hidden storerooms, and many side rooms. Han Yunxi finally realized that Long Fei Yi had long ordered people to start building Pill Fiend Pharmacy in South Ning Prefecture. However, construction had stopped for a long time and only resumed 2 months ago. Now it was all finished and waiting for the sign to be hung up. You can hang up the sign after we've finished our negotiations with Medicine City, Long Fei Yi said. Han Yunxi looked at him as her heart warmed. This guy really is considerate. Han Yunxi looked around with Long Fei Yi by her side. But when they reached the courtyard, they suddenly heard a resolute voice from next door. Even if I die here today, I won't go back. Chapter 506. She'd rather die than go back. Han Yunxi was just thinking about the familiar voice when Long Fei Yi spoke up. It's her again. Yes, it's her again, Mu Ling. Long Fei Yi's tone made it clear that he didn't want to meddle in other people's business, but Han Yunxi was a bit worried about this girl. Moreover, Mu Ling was a genius pharmacist, and Pill Fiend Pharmacy needed her. She smiled and said, Long Fei Yi, why don't you climb the wall and take a look? Climb the wall? When had he, Long Fei Yi, ever climbed a wall? With Han Yunshi in his arms, he silently flew up to a tree in the neighboring courtyard. From where he stood, he could see everything clearly. Han Yunshi suddenly felt that it would be great if she had a personal bodyguard like Long Fei Yi. Actually, she already had one, didn't she? The person in the courtyard was indeed Mu Ling-er. At this moment, she was holding a dagger to her neck. The young man standing in front of her was dressed in bright clothes and had the appearance of a hedonistic son of a wealthy family. Behind him were a dozen or so sword-wielding bodyguards. His aura was fierce and overbearing. "Stinking girl, do you think this young master can't do anything to you if you threaten me with death?" The young man's insufferably arrogant attitude could only be described with his nose in the air. "I'm not joking with you. If I die, do you think father will spare you?" Mu Ling-er questioned loudly. At this point, Han Yunshi more or less understood what was going on. Mu Ling had offended the entire Medicine City because of the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet and had been pursued by them for over a year now. In the past year, her father, Mu Ling-er, probably helped her block a lot of things. However, when Han Yunshi heard that Mu Ling-er was short of money, she knew that her father couldn't withstand the pressure and wanted her to go back. If Han Yunshi guessed correctly, Mu Ingdong must have created the illusion of Mu Ling-er's death, and then secretly imprisoned Mu Ling-er for the rest of her life so that she could continue to be loyal to the Mu family. Han Yunshi couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Being born in a big family, if one was too useless, one would be discriminated against. If one was too dazzling, there would be all kinds of thoughts. "Ha ha ha, do you think this young master will let my father know?" The young man's laughter pulled Han Yunshi back from her thoughts. She saw Mu Ling-er's dagger was really going to stab her neck. "Miss Zhou!" A guard shouted, but unfortunately, the young man slapped him and angrily said, "What are you stopping me for? If you want to die, then die with her." As he spoke, he dragged the guard out and kicked him to Mu Ling-er's side. The guard was angry, but he didn't dare to say anything. He got up and resentfully stood to the side, not daring to make a sound. "Mu Chaoran, don't go too far," Mu Ling-er angrily said. "Mu Chaoran." Han Yunshi was stunned at first, but then she almost laughed out loud. What a coincidence. They had just made an appointment with the 3 medicine clans to discuss the sale of low-quality ingredients at Pillfiend Pharmacy when this guy showed up, right next to it. After all, most of the shady dealings between Medicine City and the black market were done by this young master of the Mu family. If they wanted to have a smooth negotiation with Medicine City, especially the Mu family, they naturally had to first have a good talk with this young master. "Your Highness, this matter is none of our business, shouldn't we?" Before Han Yunshi could finish speaking, Long Fei Yi coldly declared, "We're definitely going to interfere. Guards, what are you waiting for?" Mu Chaoran waved his hand in a particularly arrogant manner. Who would have thought that Mu Ling-er would actually raise her head and cut her neck with the dagger, leaving a bloody mark? All of the guards stopped in their tracks. Han Yunshi was shocked. "Stupid girl, Mu Chaoran is stupid, but you're even stupider than him. You're a pig." Without Mu Ling-er, the Mu family could have faked Mu Ling-er's medicine to create a genius. If Mu Ingdong hadn't been imprisoned by Mu Ling-er, he would have definitely made the first young master into the second genius of the Mu family. If Mu Ling-er died, Mu Chaoran would suffer the greatest loss. How could Mu Chaoran think so deeply? Ever since he was young, he'd wanted nothing more than for Mu Ling-er to die. As long as she was dead, there would be no one to compete with him for the position of house head. As long as she was dead, he would be able to unscrupulously search through her belongings and find the 38 medicinal notes. "What are you all standing there for? Don't you want to mingle in the Mu family anymore?" he roared. The guards listened to Mu Ling-er in the end. Even if the tip of the dagger had already pierced into her flesh and could take her life at any time, they still went forward to capture her. Mu Linger suddenly smiled. Her smile was filled with despair. She really wanted to die. Returning to the Mu family was a fate worse than death for her. As for Chi brother, when she woke up at the inn and found out that Chi brother had poisoned her to get rid of her, she suddenly realized how much Chi brother disliked her. Up until now, there were only two things in her life. One was to create medicine for the Mu family, and the other was goo. Now, there was nothing left for her. The guards were already in front of her. She could either stab her with the dagger or be captured by them. Mu Linger closed her eyes. Just as she was about to vent her anger, a clang was suddenly heard and the dagger fell to the ground. Who's there? Mu Chaoran was the first to react. Two quick-witted guards wanted to seize the chance to capture Mu Linger, but they suddenly collapsed to the ground with bloody wounds on their necks. Now all of the guards were afraid and backed away. Mu Chaoran was the most frightened of them all. He hid behind the guards and shouted, "You dare to provoke my Medicine City's Mu family? Do you want to die? Who's there? Come out." Long Fei Yi slowly landed with Han Yunxi in his arms. Mu Chaoran didn't recognize the Long Fei Yi, but felt that Han Yunxi's face was very familiar. Han Yunxi! Mu Linger exclaimed. Why did she run into this woman again? Why did she run into her when she was at her most wretched? Mu Chaoran finally realized why he felt so familiar. This was the woman the Duke of Qin had once put a bounty on all of Cloud Realm Continent, Qin Wangfei. So the man holding her waist so domineeringly was, Duke of Qin, Mu Chaoran muttered. Mu Chaoran had spent the past few months searching for Mu Linger, so he had no idea that Zhongsun Zealand had already surrendered to the Duke of Qin's estate. Although he feared Long Fei Yi in his heart, he still acted like the eldest young master of the Mu clan and said, "Your Highness Duke of Qin, these are my Mu clan's internal affairs. I ask that you make things easy for us." Mu Chaoran was polite enough, but Long Fei Yi wasn't the least bit courteous. He gave Mu Chaoran a cold look without replying. Feeling awkward, Mu Chaoran hardened his tone. Someone come and take ninth young miss back." Although the Duke of Qin wasn't someone to be trifled with, neither was the head of Medicine City's Mu clan. He'd heard of how Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi had teamed up with Gu Qisha to open Pill Fiend Pharmacy. No matter what those two did, anyone who had anything to do with Pill Fiend Pharmacy was an enemy of Medical City and Medicine City. Based on this alone, Mu Chaoran felt that he had no reason to be afraid of them. Before the guards could move, Han Yunxi had already stepped in front of Mu Linger to block their path. She crossed her arms over her chest and smiled at Mu Chaoran, her smile completely harmless. Mu Linger lowered her head and remained silent. Seeing this, Mu Chaoran sneered. "Esteemed Wangfei, it seems that esteemed Wangfei is determined to meddle in my Mu clan's internal affairs." Han Yunxi smiled and nodded. Mu Chaoran didn't hold back and pointed at Han Yunxi. "Very good. You'd better not regret this." Then he turned to leave. He might be stupid, but he wasn't stupid enough to try and fight the Duke of Qin with just a few people. He'd only taken 2 steps when he unwillingly turned back. Making an enemy of Medicine City is the same as making an enemy of Medical City. There won't be a good ending. Han Yunxi had a very good temper. She smiled and waved goodbye. Mu Chaoran was infuriated to death. "Crazy woman." He spat. Just as he was about to turn around, a sharp wind blade suddenly scraped past his neck. "It hurts." He touched his hand and found it covered in blood. When he focused, he saw a blood-stained leaf on the ground in front of him. He was scared out of his wits and turned to Long Fei Yi, only to see Long Fei Yi playing with a few leaves in his hand. He then looked at Han Yunxi and saw that she was still smiling and waving at him. Mu Chaoran felt a chill run down his spine. He had a very bad premonition. Go on, why aren't you leaving? Han Yunshi finally spoke in a very friendly tone. What do you want? This young master is the eldest young master of the Mu clan. If you dare do anything to me, Medicine City won't let you off. Mu Chaoran warned. Mu Linger, your brother is leaving. Aren't you going to send him off? Han Yunshi asked. Mu Linger finally raised her head and looked at Han Yunshi straight back. She didn't know what possessed her, but she felt a sense of security. She didn't feel like she was alone anymore. She walked out with her chin held high. Of course I have to send him off properly. Mu Linger. You dare. Mu Chaoran roared. See if I dare or not. Mu Linger sneered and walked step by step towards Mu Chaoran. Mu Chaoran turned to run, but Long Fei Yi immediately presented him with a leaf. He abruptly stopped, but Mu Linger kicked him from behind, just like how he'd kicked the guard. Go on, didn't you want to leave? Guards! Guards! No matter how Mu Chaoran shouted, it was all in vain. Who didn't fear the Duke of Qin's leaf? Mu Linger crouched down and asked seriously, You're not leaving? I'm your brother. Mu Chaoran emphasized. I have plenty of brothers. You're not the only one. Mu Linger smiled coldly. What are you thinking? Mu Chaoran was scared. Mu Linger smiled as innocently as Han Yunshi, but she suddenly threw a punch at Mu Chaoran's face. This old lady has wanted to do you for a long time. Mu Linger, Mu Chaoran couldn't speak because Mu Linger used both her hands, punching left and right to vent her anger. In the end, Mu Chaoran was knocked unconscious. Long Fei Yi raised his eyebrows, but Han Yunshi was stunned. She didn't expect this girl's fists to be so hard. She asked suspiciously, Hey, doesn't your hand hurt? Mu Linger stood up, not caring about the blood on her fist. She said coldly, Han Yunshi, I didn't ask you to save me. I don't care what your motive is. You want my life and nothing else. Han Yunshi probably liked Mu Linger's stubbornness. Although it was all because of a motive, it was indeed a motive. She took a step forward and whispered in Mu Linger's ear. She didn't know what she said, but Mu Linger's cold and arrogant expression instantly softened. Really? She asked seriously. If I lie to you, I'll die a horrible death. However, you better pretend that you don't know anything. Han Yunshi whispered. Chapter 507. What did Han Yunshi tell Mu Linger? Heaven and earth didn't know. Only the two of them knew. In any case, Mu Linger's entire being lit up. Han Yunshi, I believe you. Han Yunshi's focus was clearly on the latter part of her sentence. She repeated herself. It's best if you pretend you don't know anything. Mu Linger was in a good mood as she broke into a wicked grin. What do I know? I don't know a thing. Han Yunshi discovered that this girl still looked better when she smiled. She handed her a bottle of medicine. Hurry and treat that neck wound. Be careful, you won't be able to get married if it leaves a scar. Mu Linger glanced at the bottle with disdain. No need, I have plenty of medicine. She was about to leave when she scooted closer to Han Yunshi's ear and murmured, Han Yunshi, does our agreement from last time still count? A few months ago, Han Yunshi had wanted her to challenge His Excellency Pill Fiend at Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Because of the coup in Tianning's capital, Pill Fiend Pharmacy hadn't opened for business yet. Because she'd escaped the Mu clan's pursuit, the matter had been delayed. A crafty gleam flashed past Han Yunshi's eyes. She knew that she could basically lure this girl to Pill Fiend Pharmacy now. She'd admit that she was crafty. Of course. Pill Fiend Pharmacy is right next door. It'll open in half a month. After that, you're welcome to come anytime, Han Yunxi smiled. Just you wait. Mu Ling coolly tossed out these two words before leaving. As for Mu Chaoran, she'd already told Chi brother to let him off the hook last time at the Mu clan's medicinal grounds. This time, he could go and die. With Mu Ling gone and Mu Chaoran unconscious, the Mu clan guards exchanged glances, unsure of what to do. Han Yunxi didn't speak, but simply smiled at them. When they saw Qin Wangfei's harmless smile, the guards were so scared that they scrambled away. How could they dare to save Mu Chaoran? The only thing they can do is to quickly report to the Mu family head. She meddled in other people's business and picked up the eldest young master of the Mu family. Han Yunxi thought, good intentions are rewarded. She turned to look at Long Fei Yi. Your Highness, carry him away. At this moment, Long Fei Yi felt like he had become a bodyguard who was at the beck and call of this woman. Of course, the ones who carried Mu Chaoran away were the shadow guards. Long Fei Yi was so obsessed with cleanliness. In this lifetime, he would probably only carry Han Yunxi. Mu Chaoran was left in Pill Fiend Pharmacy for a day and a night. He hadn't even woken up when Mu Yingdong's handwritten letter arrived via Eagle. The tone of the letter was quite rude, stating that the black market business was one thing and the Mu family's business was another. He questioned why Long Fei Yi had meddled in the Mu clan's business for no reason and accused Long Fei Yi of bullying the weak. He strongly requested that Long Fei Yi immediately release Mu Chaoran. Otherwise, the Mu clan and Medicine City would accompany him to the end. Han Yunxi read the letter a total of 3 times before seriously asking Long Fei Yi, Your Highness, aren't we going too far? Aren't you here to save someone? Long Fei Yi retorted. Han Yunxi nodded seriously. Thus, Long Fei Yi personally wrote a letter to Mu Yingdong via Eagle. When Mu Yingdong received the letter, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Long Fei Yi's reply was as follows. He said that Mu Ling had been forced to commit suicide. Fortunately, Qin Wangfei had saved her, so the Mu clan owed Qin Wangfei a life. As for Mu Chaoran, he had been beaten unconscious by his own sister and abandoned by his guards. Qin Wangfei couldn't bear to see him like this and could only rescue him back to Pill Fiend Pharmacy to take care of him. Thus, the Mu clan owed Qin Wangfei a life. That's a total of 2 lives, so please keep them in mind. Mu Yingdong was currently on his way to South Ning Prefecture. Regarding Mu Chaoran's collusion with Zhangsun Zealand to sell rare herbs at a high price in the black market, Mu Yingdong didn't plan to appear personally. He only planned to be the military advisor behind the scenes and let Mu Chaoran talk to Han Yunxi himself. After all, he had to leave himself a way out. If the negotiations failed, he could still punish Mu Chaoran as the Mu clan's patriarch and give the world an explanation. At the very least, he could restore the Mu clan's reputation to a certain extent. But now, before he even arrived, Mu Chaoran had fallen into Han Yunxi's hands. What was there to talk about? Mu Yingdong thought about it for a long time before finally placing all the blame on Mu Ling. If it wasn't for this pampered girl, things wouldn't have gotten to this point. Pill Fiend Pharmacy had already been completed, so Han Yunxi was extremely busy. What was she busy with? Of course, she was tidying up the herbs. She originally wanted to decorate Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but after taking a stroll around, she found that there was no need for that at all. Everyone said that simple decorations were fine, but Pill Fiend Pharmacy's decorations were definitely done with great care and effort. Aside from the herbs, any other decorations were superfluous. The storehouse design, on the other hand, was a combination of her original blueprints and many additional details. It could be said to be perfect. This was Long Fei Ye's style. He always gave the best. Han Yunxi was so busy that she didn't have time to pay attention to Mu Chaoran. She originally planned to have a good chat with him after he woke up, but who would have thought that Mu Chaoran would sleep for another day and night? No matter how hard that little girl Mu Ling's fists were, how could she really beat a grown man until he was crippled? How strange. Under Long Fei Ye's accompaniment, Han Yunxi arrived at the guest room that had taken in Mu Chaoran. She saw the bruised and swollen Mu Chaoran lying on the bed without any signs of waking up. Su Donglin, who was in charge of guarding the room, asked in a low voice, "Esteemed Wang Fei, did you hurt your head?" Han Yunxi deliberately walked closer and stared at his face. She shouted, "Bring a basin of ice water." Mu Chaoran didn't react at all. It didn't seem like he was faking it. Su Donglin was just about to leave when Long Fei Yi said, "Hot water, the hottest." His voice wasn't loud, but it shocked Mu Chaoran so much that his eyes widened in fright. "You're awake." Han Yunxi smiled happily. Mu Chaoran was about to cry. He had woken up a long time ago. He knew that he was being held captive, so he pretended to be asleep. He hoped that his father would quickly send someone over. But even after pretending for so long, his father still hadn't sent anyone. What should he do? Only the heavens knew why these two great Buddhas were holding him captive. "Are you hungry?" Han Yunxi asked kindly. How could he not be hungry? Mu Chaoran was so hungry that he almost fainted. But Han Yunxi's smile was his nightmare. "Esteemed Wang Fei, we can discuss everything. I'm begging you, let's not fight. Su Donglin, bring him some porridge. Only when he's full will he have the strength to talk." After being hungry for so long, eating porridge that was easy to digest wouldn't hurt his stomach. Han Yunxi was still very kind. She and Long Fei Yi sat down at a nearby tea table and waited. Mu Chaoran felt as if he had been granted amnesty. His heart that was hanging in the air finally calmed down. As long as they didn't fight, everything could be discussed. He peacefully ate the porridge. Han Yunxi thought that Mu Chaoran would wolf down the porridge, but who knew that this fellow would be able to chew slowly after being hungry for 2 days and 2 nights. Su Donglin handed him a second bowl, but he actually refused. He even asked, "Give me another bowl in 2 hours." Han Yunxi felt admiration. This fellow really cherished his life. Alright, they could talk now. "How many types of low-grade high-quality herbs does your Mu family have?" Han Yunxi went straight to the point. Mu Chaoran was very surprised. "Esteemed Wang Fei, why, we're just casually chatting." Han Yunxi said with a smile as she played with a leaf in her hand. Seeing this, Mu Chaoran's curiosity disappeared and he quickly replied, "There are the most low-grade high-quality herbs. There are around 270 types of high-quality herbs in the main category. There are at least 5 or 6 types of high-quality herbs in each main category." As soon as his voice fell, a leaf flew over and brushed past Mu Chaoran's hand, leaving behind a shallow bloodstain. Mu Chaoran was frightened and quickly changed his words. "The Mu family has a total of 300 types of low-grade high-quality herbs. 30 of them are unique to the Mu family and the Xia and Wang families can't grow them. If we subdivide these 30 types, there are 10 types of high-quality herbs in each category." Ever since he wanted to buy low-grade high-quality herbs, Long Fei Yi had asked Elder Wang about it. Although Elder Wang didn't know how many the Mu family had, he still knew that the Mu family had quite a few unique herbs. Mu Chaoran wanted to lie, but he was simply asking for trouble. Han Yunxi acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled and asked, "What's the price?" When she said this, Mu Chaoran was pleasantly surprised. "Esteemed Wang Fei needs it. As soon as this one returns to the Mu family, I'll immediately send over a large batch. I guarantee esteemed Wang Fei will be satisfied." Mu Chaoran's pig brain couldn't even get in touch with Pill Fiend Pharmacy. But it wasn't his fault. Pill Fiend Pharmacy walked the high-end route of Medicine Ghost Valley. Why would it want low-quality herbs? How could I ask for them for free? Just give me a cheaper price. How about this, list out the prices for each type of herb. If there's a need, this Wang Fei will send someone to buy them, Han Yunxi said politely. Thus, Mu Chaoran thought himself clever. Tianning's in chaos, he thought, so there's bound to be chaos soon. When that happens, there'll be a lot of casualties. Medicinal ingredients will be in short supply. Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi must be planning to stock up on medicinal ingredients. Although it was a bit expensive to use high-quality herbs, they could still afford to use low-quality ones. He assumed that Han Yunxi had seized the opportunity to detain him so she could haggle over the price. Just like that, Mu Chaoran listed an extremely low price that was close to the cost of production. There was no profit at all. Han Yunxi glanced at the price and was very satisfied. Seeing that Han Yunxi was satisfied, Mu Chaoran felt reassured. As long as she could let him go, he didn't mind making less money or even losing money. Esteemed Wang Fei, if there's nothing else, then, this one will take his leave. Mu Chaoran said timidly. The sooner this one returns to the Mu clan, the better to personally prepare the goods for esteemed Wang Fei. We'll be working together for a long time, so there's no rush. In any case, your father should be here in a couple of days. You can go back with him then, Han Yunxi said with a smile. Mu Chaoran was stunned. For a moment, he didn't understand what Han Yunxi meant. There was too much information in those words. What long-term cooperation? His father was coming in person. 2 days later, Mu Yingdong didn't show up. Instead, it was the Wang clan's second master Wang Zhongyang, the Xia clan's eldest young master Xia Hongming, and the Mu clan's shopkeeper Zhou who showed up. The Wang and Xia clans were all involved in the black market's drug trade, while shopkeeper Zhou was only a servant. His Highness Duke of Qin and esteemed Wang Fei kept the Wang and Xia clans people and allowed shopkeeper Zhou to return. His Highness Duke of Qin was very angry. Either the person involved or the clan head comes. What does a trifling shopkeeper want to talk to this prince about? Esteemed Wang Fei was very understanding. Eldest young Master Mu is already at Pill Fiend Pharmacy, so there's no need for the Mu clan to send anyone. Mu Yingdong, who was hiding in the inn, was caught between a rock and a hard place. He had no choice but to personally show up and become the only clan head of Medicine City's 3 clans to show up. He was so depressed that he almost died. Now that the 3 clans had all arrived, how would this deal be discussed? How would the clueless Mu Chaoran react when he saw his father? Chapter 508. Behind Pill Fiend Pharmacy's enormous store was a garden, and behind it was a luxurious reception hall. Second Master Wang Zhongyang and eldest young Master Xia Hongming didn't know about Mu Chaoran's affairs, so they weren't surprised to see him sitting there. Mu Chaoran, on the other hand, was stunned. Why were these two here? His Highness Duke of Qin and Qin Wang Fei had only told him that his father was coming to drink tea, but nothing else. Of course he knew that his father wasn't just here to make tea, and that Qin Wang Fei wasn't just asking for the price of ingredients. But what did this have to do with the Wang and Xia clans? Could it be that Qin Wang Fei was going to shop around? The Duke of Qin's estate was rich and overbearing, so why was she so unhappy about doing business? Was she planning to stock up on a lot of ingredients? That was Mu Chaoran's analysis. Therefore, he decided to remain silent once again, thinking that he was clever. After all, he'd quoted the lowest price. The Xia and Wang clans couldn't possibly go lower than him, unless they wanted to make a loss. High-quality ingredients had high requirements for soil and care. The Mu clan had plenty of fertile fields and skilled labor, so their costs were naturally lower than the Wang and Xia clans. Therefore, the Mu family had the upper hand in terms of price and quality of medicinal herbs. Mu Chaoran didn't know about Mute Granny, much less that his father had been cheated out of a treasure by Qin Wangfei in order to save Mu Ling. He thought himself clever. If he could close this deal, he'd forget all the unpleasantness from before and form a personal friendship with the Duke of Qin. Tianning was divided into 3 parts. Although the Duke of Qin hadn't declared himself emperor, he was still the hegemon of the south-central regions. Forming a friendship with him would at least give him a way out. The 2 men from the Wang and Xia clans bowed and took their seats, but His Highness Duke of Qin and Qin Wangfei didn't say anything. Firstly, there was a difference in status. Secondly, the 2 of them didn't dare to speak up. Instead, they sent inquisitive looks towards Mu Chaoran. But after much thought, Mu Chaoran pretended not to see them and calmly drank his tea. After a period of silence, it was Wang Zhongyang who spoke up. Your Highness Duke of Qin, they haven't all arrived yet. The Mu clan head hasn't arrived yet, Long Feiyi replied. These words sent waves through the Wang and Xia clans. How could this be? Muingdong actually came in person. They were here to settle the ugly business of the black market's medicinal herbs in private. Qin Wangfei could only buy and sell the low-end premium herbs she wanted privately. One had to know that Pill Fiend Pharmacy was under Gu Qisha's name. If they were to publicly supply medicinal ingredients, Medical City would definitely object. It was not appropriate for the patriarch to appear in such matters. Firstly, if this matter were to be exposed one day, the clan head would have no way out. Secondly, if the other party raised a high request, the clan head would have no way to refuse. Things were a little complicated. Wang and Xia looked at Mu Chaoran and saw that he was very relaxed. Thus, they decided not to say anything more. Therefore, when Muingdong came over, everyone present was very silent. Muingdong sat down beside Mu Chaoran and glared at him fiercely. Mu Chaoran thought it was about Mu Ling and let him stare. Muingdong glanced at Wang and Xia and said, "What are you talking about? Looks like old man is late. Since the Mu clan head came personally, how could we talk without waiting for you?" Han Yunxi smiled. Hearing this, Muingdong understood what was going on. He stood up and raised his teacup. Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wangfei, I've heard that you two work tirelessly to reform Gu Qisha and sell medicine to save people. This one admires you endlessly. Although Gu Qisha refused to sell his medicine in the past and watched people die without saving them, this one feels gratified that he's turned over a new leaf and walked the right path. Today, I've personally come to deliver a medicine command token to show my support. So speaking, Muingdong took out a wooden command token that emanated the fragrance of medicinal herbs. Of course Han Yunxi would accept it. Even if Muingdong didn't give it to them, they'd ask for it in today's negotiations. That was because a medicine command token was equivalent to a permit to do business. In Cloud Realm Continent, all legitimate pharmacies had to have such a thing or else they wouldn't be recognized by the medical community. Otherwise, no one would openly sell medicine to you, much less let their patients fill prescriptions. The command tokens were in the hands of Medicine City, so all 3 families had the right to issue them. Han Yunxi accepted the token with a clear conscience, but Mu Chaoran was stunned. Father didn't need to spend so much money just to get on good terms with the Duke of Qin, right? He'd even publicly recognized Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Although he made it sound so dignified, it'd be hard to explain to Medical City later. As for the Wang and Xia Wangs, they remained silent. Muingdong was a wily old fox, so he didn't mention a word about the black market. Instead, he gave Pill Fiend Pharmacy such a huge benefit as soon as he arrived. Qin Wangfei probably knew what was going on and wouldn't make things too difficult for them. After Han Yunxi accepted the command token, Mu Yingdong added, Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wangfei, since my Mu clan has issued the command token, we'll do our best to assist Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Of course, we'll also strictly monitor its sales. I hope the two of you can understand. Han Yunxi couldn't help but admire him for his bureaucratic words. If Mu Yingdong had asked for Zhang Sun Zealand's records as soon as he arrived, that would have been too low class. Mu Yingdong wasn't here to settle things privately. He was here to publicly support Pill Fiend Pharmacy. It was fine as long as everyone was well aware of those scandals. Putting on an official front and not leaving any evidence to be used against each other was also quite good. As a result, Han Yunxi followed Mu Yingdong's lead and said, with Mu clan head's words, this Wangfei can rest assured. Pill Fiend Pharmacy is quite interested in low-end quality medicinal ingredients. Is Mu clan head willing to cooperate? Of course. Mu Yingdong was very straightforward. At this time, the Wang and Xia Wangs hurriedly spoke up. Esteemed Wangfei, the Wang family is also willing to cooperate. Esteemed Wangfei, the Xia family is willing to supply Pill Fiend Pharmacy. This one has full authority over the price. Since Mu Yingdong had issued the command token, the Wang and Xia clans didn't need to bear the pressure of Medical City. They naturally had to publicly curry favor with Pill Fiend Pharmacy and were eager to express their stance. Mu Chaoran hadn't said anything until now. When he heard the word price, he only smiled coldly. How many low-end quality medicinal ingredients does Pill Fiend Pharmacy intend to buy? Mu Yingdong was very straightforward. He had suffered from insomnia for an entire night before coming up with this method to deal with this negotiation. Right now, he just wanted to quickly conclude this matter and go back to teach Mu Chaoran a lesson. Then, he would increase the search for that damned girl Mu Ling, and bring her back. Of course, he was also worried about Mute Granny. However, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi hadn't made any moves on this matter, so he couldn't make a decision for the time being. How much, that's hard to say, Han Yunxi said seriously. Why is it hard to say? Esteemed Wangfei, we're all straightforward people. Just name a quantity and old man will name a price, Mu Yingdong said. What? Will there be a discount if the quantity is higher? Han Yunxi asked curiously. Of course. The higher the quantity, the greater the discount. Mu Yingdong decided to take advantage of Han Yunxi. Even Gu Qisha wouldn't necessarily know the exact price of these ingredients. TSK, it looks like House Head Mu has quite the talent for business. Han Yunxi smiled. It was absolutely ironic that people from Medicine City and Medical City, who helped the dying and healed the wounded, were praised for their talent in business. Mu Yingdong was quite embarrassed. How much does esteemed Wangfei need? Let's take a look at the types and prices first. Han Yunxi became serious. Mu Yingdong took out the list of ingredients. There were 270 types of low-end quality ingredients and their respective prices. Not to mention the 30 types Mu Chaoran had mentioned, the prices were also very unreasonable. This price was 5 times higher than Mu Chaoran's price. Mu Yingdong, why don't you just go rob a bank? Han Yunxi was very direct. House Head Mu, I heard young Master Mu say that the Mu family has 30 types of low-end quality ingredients that this Wangfei is very interested in. Why isn't there anything on the list? Mu Yingdong immediately looked at Mu Chaoran. Mu Chaoran lowered his head, not daring to meet Mu Yingdong's gaze. Pill Fiend Pharmacy was competing with Medicine City for the low-end quality ingredients. If the Mu family were to lose those 30 types of ingredients, they would lose the entire low-end market. If this was any other time, Mu Yingdong would have refused. However, this seemingly ordinary transaction was in the hands of the other 3 families. They had no right to bargain. Muing Dong could only agree. We do have some, but they're not on the list. What's the price? Han Yunxi asked again. Muing Dong gave a high price, 5 times higher than Mu Chaoran's. Han Yunxi's eyes flashed dangerously for the second time, but she still smiled. What if this Wang Fei wants 50 dan of each type? How much discount can House Head Mu give? 50 dan of each type. That's more than 30 bags per dan. Is this woman crazy? It would be strange if so many ingredients didn't go bad. Moreover, if the ingredients weren't picked, the longer they were planted, the better. Once they were picked, the longer they were stored, the weaker their medicinal effects would become. They would either rot or rot. Everyone present was shocked. Long Fei Yi, who had been watching from the sidelines, also frowned at Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi continued to do as she pleased. House Head Mu, it would be too insincere of you not to give me a big discount for such a large quantity. Muing Dong pondered for a moment, then decisively said, since esteemed Wang Fei is so sincere, this old man will give His Highness Duke of Qin some face and give you a 20% discount, 20% discount. That was the equivalent of a 20% discount. A bag of ingredients was 50 taels, so a 20% discount was 40 taels. Mu Chaoran's starting price was only 10 taels. They wouldn't make a loss even if they sold it for 10 taels. Han Yunxi was angry. Your Highness, your face is only worth such a small discount. Let's just not buy it. Long Fei Yi said, then let's see them out. How could the atmosphere change so quickly? Not to mention the Wang and Xie siblings, even Muing Dong was frightened. If the deal didn't go well, the scandal would be exposed. Esteemed Wang Fei, then name a price. Muing Dong hurriedly said. He thought that no matter how good Han Yunxi was at bargaining, she wouldn't be able to lower the price. But who would have thought that Han Yunxi would very bluntly say, you can keep 20% for yourself. Give me an 80% discount. With an 80% discount, it happened to be Mu Chaoran's starting price. It was also the Mu family's lowest price. Muing Dong's cold gaze shot towards Mu Chaoran. He wished he could shoot him to death on the spot. This unfilial son, he actually revealed all of his secrets to others. He even talked so much. It was simply a joke. Chapter 509. Despite his anger, Muing Dong couldn't help but acknowledge Han Yunxi's intelligence. That was because this was his bottom line. If the price was lower than this, he wouldn't compromise and would only allow them to expose his ugly deeds. If the price was higher than this, they would be able to make a profit. At the very least, they would be able to find some comfort in this matter. However, they were stuck at this price. It was like a chicken rib that was tasteless to eat, but a pity to throw it away. His old life had almost died from depression. Muing Dong thought it over and over again, but he still found some comfort. Han Yunxi wanted such a large amount, so they should clear out the stock. At the very least, they should convert all the stock that was about to go bad into silver. In a sense, they would make a small profit. As a result, Muing Dong readily agreed. This old man naturally has to give face to the Duke of Qin. If it's an 80% discount, then so be it. Just treat it as a congratulatory gift for Pill Fiend Pharmacy's grand opening. Who would accept money for a congratulatory gift? Han Yunxi cursed Muing Dong for being shameless in her heart, so she did something even more shameless than Muing Dong, completely crushing him into despair. She said, 300 types of medicinal ingredients, 50 dan of each. I'll buy them in batches every month. I'll stock them at the beginning of this month and settle the bill at the beginning of next month. When she said this, Muing Dong's face turned black, but she continued with a serious expression, I'll settle the bill as much as I buy. Mu family head can rest assured. This Princess Consort guarantees in the name of His Highness that I won't go back on my word. Long Fei Yi almost choked on the tea that had just entered his throat. He lightly coughed a few times before calmly saying, approved. Han Yunxi was overjoyed and continued, of course, we'll also have to sign a price guarantee agreement. If the price of medicinal ingredients drops, Mu family head will have to guarantee the price for Pill Fiend Pharmacy and make up for the difference. Mu Yingdong's face didn't just turn black. His vision turned black and he almost fainted. Han Yunxi. Why don't you just go rob someone? Mu Yingdong was dumbfounded and didn't say anything for a long time. Mu Chaoran's head was almost buried in his pants. He knew that he would never be able to turn the situation around. As for the two from the Wang and Xia families, they didn't dare to make a sound. They only hoped that the Princess Consort would take less of their family's goods after eating so much of the Mu family's goods. Not to mention the fact that they were going to lose money at this price, just the insurance agreement alone was going to make them lose a lot of money. Qin Wangfei had ordered such a large batch at the current price, so it would definitely take 1 or 2 years to get all the goods. For the past 2 years, the price of medicinal herbs had been rising and there was no sign of it falling. She made it sound nice that it was a price guarantee. Because of time, the essence was that if the price went up, it wouldn't go up, and if the price went down, it would have to be covered. For example, if the price of medicinal ingredients increased a year later, the Mu family would only be able to sell to Pill Fiend Pharmacy at the current price. Moreover, if the price dropped, the Mu family would have to follow suit. The phrase, sure win, no loss, was simply created for Han Yunxi. Mu family head, if you think there's no problem, let's make it clear in black and white, okay? Han Yunxi said, then added, once you've made it clear, I'll be able to place the order. As for the first order, I'll pay as soon as the goods arrive. Send someone to deliver the list you want as well. The list Mu Yingdong wanted was undoubtedly the record of the medicinal ingredients that Zhang Sun Zilin had given to Long Fei Yi. Since Mu Yingdong had been forced to come here in person, he didn't mention a single word about the black market. Instead, he found a high-sounding reason to grant Pill Fiend Pharmacy a medicine order and made it sound like a normal business transaction. He was truly worthy of being the head of a family. He was truly amazing. Unfortunately, no matter how amazing he was still under someone else's control in this matter. Han Yunxi had grasped his bottom line and put him between a rock and a hard place. Seeing that Mu Yingdong was showing signs of regret, Long Fei Yi said, Mu family head, what do you think? The weight of His Highness Duke of Qin's words was different from that of Qin Wangfei's. Mu Yingdong raised his head, weighing the cost of going back on his word. Leaving aside the fact that Tianning was divided into 3 parts and what Long Fei Yi would do in the future, there was also the matter of Mute Granny. Heaven knows what Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi were up to, how much they knew, and what plans they had. After some hesitation and deliberation, Mu Yingdong finally compromised. Your Highness Duke of Qin, the old man sold you this face. Let's just leave it at that. Sold him face. Would that count as owing him, Mu Yingdong? Long Fei Yi said, Mu family head, there's no need for that. Mu Yingdong was furious in his heart. Long Fei Yi, don't ever ask for Medicine City's help again. Your Highness Duke of Qin really knows how to joke. Mu Yingdong cleverly laid a way out for Han Yunxi. Esteemed Wangfei, let's draw up the agreement. Han Yunxi knew when to stop. Someone come, bring me brush and ink. Just like that, Han Yunxi used Pill Fiend Pharmacy's name to sign a lengthy agreement with the Mu clan. It guaranteed both the supply and price of their ingredients. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's prices were controlled to a certain level that most people could accept. It was also because of this that Medicine City and other markets had no choice but to lower the prices of similar ingredients. Before the price hike, the Mu clan wasn't losing out either. It was just that everyone was earning less than before. Because of this, Han Yunxi had offended quite a few people, but she didn't mind. She said that medicinal ingredients were like rice. They were needed by the people, so the price had to be reasonable. Before long, Pill Fiend Pharmacy had become the best pharmacy in the city. Of course, this was all for later. After reaching an agreement with the Mu clan, Mu Yingdong angrily left with Mu Chaoran. The Wang and Xia clan elders had made ample preparations, but now they sat there in a daze, unsure of what to do. "Sirs, please have some tea," Han Yunxi said politely. The two elders smiled and picked up their teacups to drink. If this princess consort's guess is correct, the Mu clan's medicinal ingredients cost far less than yours, correct? Han Yunxi's words caused Xia Hongming to hastily reply, "Yes, yes, esteemed princess consort is wise." Wang Zhongyang hurriedly chimed in, "Esteemed Wang Fei, the Mu clan has been relying on their influence in the Council of Elders to monopolize the market. Even the best land in Medicine City has been taken by them. They've also used all sorts of methods to blackmail the young pharmacists and have almost monopolized the market. The Mu clan has to bear the responsibility for the high prices of medicinal ingredients." Ayaya, even the Wang and Xia clans of Medicine City were on the same side. Why were they so united against a common enemy? One had to know that the two clans hadn't interacted for at least 50 years. The Wang clan used to be the leader of the medicinal industry, but with the rise of the Mu clan, the Xia clan had long since joined the Mu clan. In the Council of Elders, the Mu and Xia clans had always worked together to bully the Wang clan. Today's scene was truly a rare sight. Who knew what Mu Yingdong would think if he found out? There was no doubt that Han Yunxi had said those words on purpose. He, Second Master Wang's words are quite pleasant to hear. The Mu clan's influence has grown over the years, but unfortunately, they don't have the style of a great clan. On the other hand, the Wang clan style remains the same and is worthy of respect. Han Yunxi was praising the Wang clan, not Wang Zhongyang, but Wang Zhongyang took it as a compliment and was extremely proud of himself. "Esteemed princess consort, I am indebted to you for thinking so highly of me." Xia Hongming quickly chimed in, "My father often says that Medicine City's strength of character lies in the Wang clan. I agree with esteemed princess consort." Unlike Xia Hongming's shallow flattery, Wang Zhongyang was much more cunning and went straight to the point. Just like Mu Yingdong, he didn't mention a single word about the black market. "Esteemed princess consort, although the Wang clan's ability is limited and we can't offer as low a price as the Mu clan, we will still do our best to support Pill Fiend Pharmacy. I ask esteemed princess consort to make things convenient for us." Wang Zhongyang stood up and respectfully bowed. He didn't know that Elder Wang and His Highness Duke of Qin were old friends, nor did he know that Elder Wang had already informed His Highness about the black market. No matter the outcome of the negotiations, His Highness Duke of Qin wouldn't make things difficult for the Wang clan. On the contrary, he would be severely punished by Elder Wang as soon as he returned. Xia Hongming was a junior who was basically Wang Zhongyang's follower. When he heard Wang Zhongyang's words, he hurriedly followed suit. "Esteemed princess consort, the Xia clan situation is similar to the Wang clan's. Please show mercy." Han Yunxi pretended to think for a moment before agreeing. "The two of you should go back and discuss it. Give me a price in a month. If this princess consort likes it, then this matter will be settled. If not, then we can slowly discuss it." Wang Zhongyang and Xia Hongming were overjoyed. After all, they weren't the patriarchs and didn't have the authority to decide the price. Now that the Mu clan's incident had occurred, it was a good thing for them to go back and discuss it with their patriarchs. "Many thanks to esteemed princess consort." The two of them exhaled in relief after giving their thanks. They didn't dare to linger and quickly bid their farewells. Although they were going back on different paths, Han Yunxi's words meant that the Wang and Xia clans had to discuss the price together. In this way, she'd shortened the distance between the Wang and Xia clans. In other words, she'd driven a wedge between the Mu and Xia clans. Once the Wang and Xia clans joined forces, the Mu clan wouldn't be able to act so arrogantly in Medicine City. Compared to cheating Mu Yingdong with the price, Han Yunxi's last move was the most sinister. Of course, Long Feiyi had taught her this beforehand. Long Feiyi had informed Elder Wang long ago and told him to actively ally with the Xia clan. Han Yunxi had stirred up Cloud Realm's medicine market with the incident at Pilfiend Pharmacy, while Long Feiyi was starting to stir up trouble in Medicine City. Tianning's situation was already in chaos. Would Medicine City be the next to fall into chaos? Very soon, Han Yunxi spread the news that Pilfiend Pharmacy had received a medicine token from the Mu clan and had signed a business agreement with them. She even publicly advertised for pharmacists. The medical community was in an uproar at the news. How Mu Yingdong would deal with the pressure from Medical City was the Mu clan's problem. In any case, Pilfiend Pharmacy's reputation soared. The Mu clan sent over the first batch of low-grade ingredients that Han Yunxi had requested. At the same time, Han Yunxi personally made a trip to Medicine Ghost Valley to make an inventory of the ingredients she needed. She brought some back herself and left the majority to her servants. Han Yunxi wasn't planning to settle old scores with the broomcorn millet poison incident. Like before, she hoped that Gu would come to Pilfiend Pharmacy. After all, half of the business belonged to him. Unfortunately, she didn't see Gu at all in Medicine Ghost Valley. She assumed that he'd show up once Pilfiend Pharmacy became famous. Unfortunately, it was as if he'd vanished into thin air without a trace. On an auspicious day, the sounds of congratulations and firecrackers mingled together to create a lively atmosphere. Long Feiyi personally wrote down the 3 words, Pilfiend Pharmacy, while Han Yunxi hung up the signboard. Finally, Pilfiend Pharmacy was open for business. Would Gu Qishao show up? Han Yunxi silently waited in anticipation. Gu hadn't shown up yet, but someone else had. Who was he? Chapter 5:10. There wasn't even a shadow of Gu, but Han Yunxi spotted an old friend in the crowd. He stood in the midst of the crowd and gave her a gentle smile. Sunlight shone on his handsome face, illuminating the entire world. Han Yunxi couldn't help but smile. Tranquil, relaxed, warm, all of the hubbub had nothing to do with him. Suddenly, it had nothing to do with her either. It was like an April spring breeze caressing her face, or a winter sun caressing her face. Gu Beiyue, long time no see. After the rebel army captured Tianning's imperial palace, Emperor Tianhui had fled overnight. Han Yunxi assumed that he'd taken Gu Beiyue with him as well, so she never expected to see him here. Gu Beiyue walked out of the crowd until 7th Madam and Bailey Mingxiang noticed him. As for Long Feiyi, he'd spotted him long ago. It had to be said that Gu Beiyue didn't know how to socialize, but he was very popular with people. Needless to say, the Han clan members, even Bailey Mingxiang and Su Xiaoyu, liked him a lot. Everyone came forward to greet him, but Gu Beiyue bowed towards Han Yunxi at the gates. Esteemed Wang Fei, may I ask if your esteemed pharmacy needs a resident doctor? May this one be so bold as to recommend myself? Everyone's attention focused on him at his words. A resident doctor. Does that mean he's willing to work as a resident doctor at Pilfiend Pharmacy? The sudden surprise made Han Yunxi very happy and moved. After all, a divine doctor like Gu Beiyue didn't need to stay at a pharmacy. Once he left the Imperial Physician Courtyard, he could open his own clinic or return to the medical academy with a bright future ahead of him. The most he could do was to check the prescriptions of the people who came to get the medicine and provide some suggestions. It was really a waste of talent. It wasn't just Han Yunxi. Everyone behind her was overjoyed as well. But soon enough, the crowd began to hiss. He's overestimating himself. He looks like a sickly invalid. What part of him looks like a doctor? Pill Fiend Pharmacy isn't some random place. Young man, you don't know the difference between heaven and earth. Most of the doctors stationed in medicine halls weren't anything special, but Pill Fiend Pharmacy wasn't an ordinary medicine hall. The doctors stationed here couldn't be careless. How could Gu Beiyue be a casual person? He was calm and collected, but Han Yunxi was anxious. Just as she was about to explain, an immortal-looking old man walked out of the crowd. He gently squeezed Gu Beiyue's right shoulder, and Gu Beiyue's shoulder seemed to have suffered a great blow. It suddenly collapsed, and his whole body squatted down. It was just a light pinch. No matter how weak his body was, it shouldn't be so weak. What's going on? Everyone was shocked. Han Yunxi was about to rush over, but Long Fei pulled her from behind. He said, "What's the rush?" Gu Beiyue squatted on the ground with a pained expression on his face. It was unknown if he was deliberately keeping quiet or if he was in too much pain to speak. "Young man, it hurts a lot, doesn't it?" The old man asked indifferently. Gu Beiyue nodded. The old man gently squeezed Gu Beiyue's left shoulder again. This time, Gu Beiyue's left shoulder also collapsed. His shoulders drooped, making him look especially weak. The old man circled to Gu Beiyue's back and gently pushed Gu Beiyue's palm as if he was doing Tai Chi. Gu Beiyue huffed and let out a long sigh. "Do you feel better?" the old man asked again. Gu Beiyue nodded again. The old man stroked his beard seriously and muttered to himself, "Dampness is the most evil of all. It harms the young, and those who harm the young will become weak, sick, and die." As he spoke, he circled to Gu Beiyue's back and took out a golden needle. After performing a few strange movements, he pierced it into Gu Beiyue's neck. A needle was usually inserted in a spiral and wouldn't go too deep. But the old man's needle pierced in, and it was especially deep. Everyone watched with trepidation, but Gu Beiyue didn't seem to have any abnormalities. Han Yunxi was the most attentive of them all. Although she wasn't reassured, Gu Beiyue's medical skills were so exceptional that he wouldn't stay silent if he was hurt. Thus, she decided to keep quiet for now. After a while, the old man started to massage Gu Beiyue's left and right shoulders again. Everyone stared fixedly, but Gu Beiyue didn't have much reaction. However, when the old man pulled out the golden needle, they saw that the golden needle had turned completely black. It was so black that it was shining. This wasn't the most amazing thing. The most amazing thing was that this golden needle was actually wet. This time, everyone was shocked. What was going on? They saw Gu Beiyue slowly stand up and shrugged his shoulders. Not only was he fine, he looked much more energetic than before. He looked radiant. Was the dampness removed? Was it cured? Dampness was accumulated over the years, and it was very troublesome to treat. It had to be treated from all aspects. Without 2 or 3 years of good rest, there wouldn't be any effect at all. This sickly person was so energetic. Could it be that 2 or 3 needles could remove the dampness? Someone in the crowd immediately asked, "Old man, does this count as removing the dampness?" The old man's face was unfathomable, and he didn't answer. He sized up Gu Beiyue and said lightly, "half a gram each of Feng, Qinggan, Weiling Xian, and Sangji. Decoct them every day and drink them as tea." After he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and calmly walked out of the crowd. Everyone unconsciously opened up a path, thinking that this person must be a hidden expert. Gu Beiyue didn't thank him, nor did he show much concern. He touched his neck with a gentle expression. The old man walked slowly step by step, looking like an immortal and calm, but his heart was filled with anxiety. Step by step, he walked slower and slower. Qin Wangfei had long posted a notice to recruit talented people. He'd shown such a godly skill at Pill Fiend Pharmacy's gates, so why hadn't Qin Wangfei asked him to stay? Shouldn't she be courteous to him and invite him to stay as a resident doctor at Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Finally, the old man stopped. If he kept walking, he'd really be too far away. After some thought, he turned to Gu Beiyue and said, "Young man, the old man has only accepted one disciple in his life. He's the head imperial physician of Tianning, Gu Beiyue. Although there's a difference between the two of you, you've met the old man by fate today. Come, follow the old man to learn acupuncture." His words sent the crowd into an uproar. No one expected this old man to be Gu Beiyue's master. Gu Beiyue might only be a fifth-ranked divine doctor, but his medical skills had long surpassed that. Moreover, his reputation in Tianning was even greater than that of the medical academy's doctors. Could it be that he'd followed this expert after his grandfather passed away? If that's the case, then this expert's medical skills must be incredible. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone was astonished, but Han Yunxi and the others were the most surprised. How could there be such a blind person in the world? There's really no saving him if he can trick people to this extent. Han Yunxi and the others were all silent. Long Fei Ye's lips were twitching. He'd long seen through this old man's lies, but he never expected this kind of ending. Unexpectedly, Gu Beiyue wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled modestly and said, "This one is untalented, so I won't seek connections with you." "Are you an idiot? Young man, have you lost your mind as well? Don't you want such a good opportunity? Young man, do you know who Gu Beiyue is? It's your good fortune to be able to become fellow disciples of the same sect as Imperial Physician Gu." All sorts of voices came from all directions, but Gu Beiyue was truly good-natured. He sighed softly and didn't try to explain himself. He only bowed to Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi before preparing to leave. Han Yunxi had planned to expose that old swindler and humiliate him, but all her anger vanished when she saw Gu Beiyue's carefree demeanor. He wasn't afraid of trouble, but simply kind and compassionate. He always turned big problems into small ones, kept a low profile, and didn't care about honor or disgrace. He was the most cultured doctor she'd ever met. Seeing this, the old uncle was dumbfounded. He only knew a few unorthodox medical skills. A few days ago, he'd accepted a sum of money and agreed to infiltrate Pill Fiend Pharmacy as an informant. Today, Pill Fiend Pharmacy had opened, so he'd only come to check out its depths. He'd wanted to seize the opportunity to show off his skills when he saw this sickly invalid. Who knew that he'd run into such a weirdo? Although it was a bit awkward, the old uncle still pretended to be calm. He smiled magnanimously and turned to leave. He thought that even though he hadn't succeeded this time, he'd at least attracted Qin Wangfei's attention. Next time, he'd find a chance to meet her by chance and enter Pill Fiend Pharmacy. With that in mind, the old uncle was about to leave with peace of mind. But at that moment, a surprised voice called out from outside the crowd, "Imperial Physician Gu, Imperial Physician Gu, you're here too. Imperial Physician Gu." In a flash, all the onlookers turned to see a spirited girl walking towards Gu Beiyue. "Imperial Physician Gu, why are you leaving after arriving at Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Does His Highness Duke of Qin and esteemed Wang Fei not welcome you?" the young lady asked jokingly. Before Gu Beiyue could reply, Han Yunxi laughed and said, "How could they not welcome you? Imperial Physician Gu, you just said that you'd be a resident physician at Pill Fiend Pharmacy. You have to keep your word." This time, the crowd exploded. This sickly invalid was actually Gu Beiyue. So that old man was a big liar. Gu Beiwe smiled helplessly. When he turned around, he saw that the group of people behind him were all dumbfounded, especially that immortal old man. The old man wanted to take the opportunity to slip away, but he was immediately grabbed by the crowd and beaten to a pulp. Han Yunxi couldn't be bothered to bicker with a clown like him. When she saw Gu Beiwe walk over, she was happy. When she saw the young lady who came with Gu Beiwe, she was even happier. This was because this person was none other than Mu Ling, the person she'd been waiting for. As expected, she'd come on the opening day. Esteemed Wang Fei, if you don't mind, Gu Beiwe is willing to serve Pill Fiend Pharmacy for the rest of his life. Gu Beiwe said seriously. His voice wasn't loud or domineering, but it shook everyone's hearts. How could the words, for the rest of his life, be said so casually? After all, saying, for the rest of his life, was a promise. These words were a bit ambiguous, but before anyone could think too much about it, Gu Beiwe added, I hope that this one will have the good fortune to help the people with your highness and esteemed Wang Fei. A complicated look flitted through Wang Fei's eyes, but he didn't say anything. Han Yunxi immediately agreed. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's good fortune. At this time, Gu was watching this scene from a nearby rooftop. His eyes narrowed into slits. He wanted nothing more than to go down there and give that old man a few slaps. That's right, he was the one who'd hired that old man. Who knew that he'd be such a scum? While Gu was fuming, he heard Mu Ling shout, Qin Wang Fei, I've come to challenge His Excellency Pill Fiend. Please tell His Excellency Pill Fiend that Medicine City's Mu Ling, is here to fight. Chapter 511. Before the matter with Gu Beiwe had settled, Mu Ling's sudden words stunned everyone present. Ever since Gu Qisha had turned over a new leaf and joined forces with Qin Wangfei to open Pill Fiend Pharmacy, Medicine City's Mu clan had granted it a medicine token, and Pill Fiend Pharmacy's recruitment of pharmacists in South Ning, Cloud Realm Continent's medical community and even Cloud Realm Continent's interest in Pill Fiend Pharmacy was on the rise. Today's grand opening wasn't limited to the citizens of South Ning Prefecture. Not to mention how many people from Medicine City and Medical City were mingling in the three circles around the entrance, even the private rooms in the surrounding tea houses and restaurants had long been fully booked. There were plenty of people present, but none of them were simple. Still, they were all frightened by Mu Ling's words. That damned girl wants to challenge Gu Qisha. This was truly unprecedented and would never be replicated in the future. Although she was the most talented pharmacist in the history of Medicine City, she still couldn't compare to Gu Qisha. His nickname of Pill Fiend wasn't for nothing. Of course, if it was an ordinary person who issued a challenge, everyone would just treat it as a joke and laugh it off. But Mu Ling was in an awkward position. The Mu clan had already granted Pill Fiend Pharmacy a medicine token and signed a business agreement, but now Mu Ling was here to stir up trouble. What was going on? Everyone was shocked, but they also began to gossip and ponder the mystery behind the situation. In any case, things had gotten out of hand. Challenge Pill Fiend. Mu Ling, you're not joking, are you? Han Yunxi couldn't believe it. Although she'd only told Mu Ling a secret and didn't get in touch with Mu Ling, Mu Ling cooperated with her tacitly. Does Qin Wangfei think this girl is joking? She retorted coldly. Since you're serious, then I'll definitely tell Pill Fiend Princess about it. Then this Wangfei will definitely tell Your Excellency Pill Fiend, but... Han Yunxi hesitated. Just what? Mu Ling asked. It's just that. His Excellency Pill Fiend has been very busy recently and isn't in Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Before Han Yunxi could finish, Mu Linger interrupted, I can wait. Unexpectedly, Han Yunxi said, but, when Gu heard this from the rooftop, he suddenly felt inexplicably nervous. But what? Mu Ling Er asked again. But Lord Pill Fiend might not accept the challenge. Han Yunxi smiled. Mu Ling Er asked bluntly, what? Are you afraid of losing? You don't dare. As soon as these words came out, there was a wave of sighs. Although Gu Qisha's reputation wasn't good, everyone had to admit that he was capable. It was already impressive enough that Mu Ling Er dared to issue a challenge, but she actually dared to speak such arrogant words. How was this a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger? This was simply not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Childish. Someone in the crowd finally couldn't help but angrily rebuke. Han Yunxi didn't say anything, and Mu Ling Er pretended not to hear anything. She deliberately raised her chin high and looked down at Pill Fiend Pharmacy's large signboard with an insufferably arrogant attitude. Esteemed Wang Fei, if Lord Pill Fiend isn't afraid of losing, then please show yourself 7 days from now. If he's afraid of losing, hee. Mu Ling Er's lips curled into a cold smile filled with disdain. After throwing down these words, she turned around and left. On the rooftop, Gu had already clenched his fists. Damn girl. Mu Ling Er had already walked far away when Han Yunxi suddenly shouted, Mu Ling Er, this Wang Fei agrees on behalf of Lord Pill Fiend. Gu slowly looked up at the sky with a helpless expression. Damn girl. These two had caused such a big commotion. If he didn't show himself 7 days from now, wouldn't he look like a coward? Wouldn't Pill Fiend's reputation be ruined? However, if he did show himself, he would have to face Long Fei Yi directly. Thinking back to when Long Fei Yi had invited him to drink South Peak Red, he guessed that it was to expose his identity. Later on, due to a freak combination of factors, he had no choice but to expose himself in order to save Han Yunxi. In any case, no matter what the process was, he was exposed in the end. He had used those ineffective powders to prove that Long Fei Yi had a full bottle of antidote for broomcorn millet poison. With such a deliberate method, given Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi's brains, it would be strange if they didn't suspect him of having ulterior motives. At that time, he had planned everything well. With irrefutable evidence, once Poison Lass believed that Long Fei Yi was lying, he would immediately send people to the hidden pavilion to cause a ruckus and lure her there. As long as Han Yunxi knew about Mute Granny, she wouldn't pursue his deliberate actions. However, who knew that Poison Lass didn't believe him at all, and the matter fell through just like that. This time, he had shown his true face, and Poison Lass had asked him about the matter again. He had said a few words to her before he left, and he had put in a lot of thought into it. Unfortunately, it had only been a few days, and this lass had reconciled with Long Fei Yi again. What was there to be suspicious about? Under the circumstances where they had reconciled, her heart was biased. Moreover, after analyzing the entire matter, his deliberate actions were highly suspicious of him trying to drive a wedge between them. Alright, these weren't the things he was most concerned about. He had admitted that he wanted to drive a wedge between them. What he was most concerned about was the matter of him breaking into the hidden pavilion previously. Last time, he was almost certain that he would succeed and did his best to sneak into the hidden pavilion and take Mute Granny away. However, who knew that Long Fei Yi would come so quickly? At that time, he was determined to kill Long Fei Yi, so he didn't hesitate to expose his immortal body. However, why wasn't that damned Long Fei Yi dead? Han Yunxi didn't have the ability to save his life. Who knew which damned doctor had saved him? Actually, after that incident, Gu's smartest move was to distance himself from Mute Granny. Unfortunately, his biggest weakness was that he held grudges and refused to admit defeat. It wasn't easy for him to get hold of Long Fei Yi's weakness, so it would be strange if he didn't find a way to expose it. Thus, in the end, it was a tragedy for him, once Gu Qixu's identity was exposed, Long Fei Yi would definitely know that he was the black-robed immortal who had broken into the hidden pavilion. With this weakness in Long Fei Yi's hands, how could he show himself so easily when he didn't have a foolproof plan in mind? He had long forgotten about Mu Ling's challenge. Who knew that things would turn out this way? Gu realized that ever since he had met Han Yunxi, his life had been filled with countless, who knew, questions. Would he show himself 7 days later? Gu fell into deep thought. At the same time, Long Fei Yi was standing behind Han Yunxi, his lips quirked up into a faintly discernible smile. Just like that, Pillfiend Pharmacy's grand opening ceremony ended with 2 shocking events. That very day, Pillfiend Pharmacy opened for business. Business was booming, and a few ingredients were sold out of stock. Long lines of people began to form for Gu Beiyue's services. The Han clan came to help, but they were still understaffed. Han Yunxi helped out behind the scenes, while the busy Long Fei Yi sat by her side to learn how to fill prescriptions. Behind him stood a group of secret guards. The servants were all idle and had nothing to do. Your Highness Duke of Qin, is this really all right? When news of Gu Beiyue's presence at Pillfiend Pharmacy reached Emperor Tianhui's ears, he felt a chill run down his back as fear filled him. He knew that Gu Beiyue and Han Yunxi were friends, but he had always respected Gu Beiyue as a doctor of noble medical ethics. He trusted that the man wouldn't act rashly. Judging from the current situation, it was truly fortunate that Gu Beiyue hadn't tried to assassinate Emperor Tianhui in the first place. Despite that, Emperor Tianhui's suspicions only grew. None of the imperial physicians by his side had good days ahead. Crack! There was a loud crash as the bedridden Emperor Tianhui viciously smashed a large bowl of medicine to pieces, frightening the servants waiting on him. "Where's the Empress?" he demanded. Chu Qingge was right outside his sleeping quarters. She took a few deep breaths to adjust her emotions before entering the room, indicating for all the servants to withdraw. Emperor Tianhui's illness was growing more unstable by the day, his temper growing worse by the day. Meanwhile, her stomach was still a disappointment. Her pregnancy had always been a rumor. She hated, hurt, and felt disgusted, but she had no choice but to treat this as the most important thing in her life. She had to find a way to conceive a dragon seed. Emperor Tianhui could only die if she was pregnant with the dragon seed. "Your Majesty, Qinxia is here. Come, drink your medicine." Chu Qingge personally carried over a new bowl of medicinal decoction. As soon as Emperor Tianhui finished drinking, she lowered the curtains and filled the room with their ambiguous sounds. It wasn't that Chu Qingge's heart didn't ache, but that she was gradually becoming a woman who could be cruel to herself. Which woman who was cruel to herself didn't harbor a towering hatred for herself? Too many emperors had died at the hands of women throughout history. Tianhui was about to become one of them. At most, Gu Beiyue's affairs would affect Emperor Tianhui, but Mu Ling's challenge to Gu Qixu had spread like wildfire to every corner of Cloud Realm continent. It was a sensation that caused a stir and became the topic of discussion in various circles. Many large gambling houses even started betting on whether Gu Qixu would accept the challenge. Even the furious Mu Yingdong couldn't help but wonder if Gu Qixu would show himself. As a result, Gu, who had already decided not to show his face, suddenly felt the pressure as he fell into a dilemma. As for Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi busied themselves until nightfall on the day of the grand opening. Han Yunxi was planning to get up early the next day to help out when she opened her eyes to find herself sleeping in Jiangnan's plum blossom sea. She bolted upright with a face full of fear. Long Fei Yi, who was sitting on one side, immediately rushed over. "I'm here, what's wrong?" Han Yunxi threw herself into his arms as soon as she saw him. Her heart finally calmed down when she hugged him, but she still felt a lingering fear. She held him very, very tightly. What's wrong? Long Fei patted her back as he asked gently. Your Highness, why are we here? Han Yunxi remembered that they had returned to the Duke of Qin's manor last night, but now that she had woken up, she was in a different place. How could someone like her, who had transmigrated, not be afraid? The two dimensions of time and space were extremely mysterious. The combination of these two dimensions could create countless possibilities. She was afraid. She was afraid that when she woke up, the world would change, and the people would also change. I rushed here last night and didn't wake you up when I saw that you were sleeping soundly. You should stay here for the next 7 days. Leave Pill Fiend Pharmacy to Gu Beiyue, Long Fei explained. Han Yunxi finally understood. She didn't know how careful Long Fei had been when he carried her in the carriage last night. She only thought that she had fallen into a deep sleep after being so busy with Pill Fiend Pharmacy for the past few days. Why are you so scared? Long Fei asked suspiciously. This woman's mind can't be that weak, right? I had a nightmare. Han Yunxi was a little evasive. How should she explain transmigrating? She had to explain it clearly. What did you dream about? Long Fei asked again. I dreamt. Han Yunxi hesitated for a moment, then whispered, I dreamt that your Highness left me forever. Chapter 5:12. Leave forever. Long Fei hugged Han Yunxi and rested his chin on her forehead. After a long silence, he finally said, I won't. Unless I die. Han Yunxi immediately covered his mouth. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Long Fei countered, Han Yunxi, what about you? No, absolutely not. Han Yunxi replied quickly and resolutely. No matter what, she would never. After the false alarm, Han Yunxi's heart was resolute. After Han Yunxi expressed her stance, she realized that Long Fei's gaze was a little different. He kept staring at her and didn't say anything for a long time. At first, Han Yunxi was still immersed in a faint sadness, but after being stared at by this guy for a long time, she gradually felt uncomfortable all over. She couldn't help but feel that Long Fei's gaze was a little strange. When it came to staring, there was probably no one in the world who could beat His Highness Duke of Qin. In any case, every time their eyes met in silence, Han Yunxi would always be the first to admit defeat. She timidly opened her mouth and said, Long Fei, what's wrong? What did you just say? Say it again. Long Fei asked. She had just said that she would never leave him. I said, Han Yunxi almost blurted it out, but when the words reached her mouth, she suddenly couldn't say it. Instead, she blushed. Your Highness Duke of Qin, are you sure you're not teasing me? Long Fei laughed heartily and leaned over to her ear. His breath was domineering. This prince likes those words. Han Yunxi was both embarrassed and happy. Alright, she admitted that she was more happy than embarrassed. Since she liked him so much, she might as well go all out. In any case, she was willing to go all out on many things, so this one wouldn't make a difference. She suddenly reached out and circled Long Fei's neck. She pulled him down and pressed her lips against his ear. This princess will remember your words. Long Fei was stunned. He was surprised that this woman was so bold. However, how could His Highness Duke of Qin be so easily taken advantage of after being distracted for only a moment? He took the opportunity to lean down. Han Yunxi could only slowly lean back and lie down. Long Fei thought that Han Yunxi would let go, but she kept her arms around his neck and didn't let go. Ever since the last time she returned to her maternal home and smashed the bowl of medicine, this woman's guts had indeed grown fat. Han Yunxi almost let go, but seeing how domineering and bad he was, she refused to let go. As a result, she slowly lay on her back on the couch. Long Fei Yi slowly leaned over and buried his head in her collarbone. His neck was tightly held by her hands. Han Yunqi raised her head and couldn't help but laugh heartily. To think that His Highness Duke of Qin would be under someone else's control. Allowing Han Yunqi to laugh, Long Fei Yi buried his head and didn't move. But very quickly, Han Yunqi's laughter came to an abrupt halt. She suddenly quivered and her entire body tensed up. What's going on? Long Fei Yi was actually nibbling on her collarbone. There was a saying that one would get burned if one played with fire. Han Yunqi was the only one who could feel her entire body stiffening. Only her hands slowly let go of Long Fei Yi. Unfortunately, it was too late. Long Fei Yi was still going. The numbness quickly spread throughout Han Yunqi's body. And he gradually moved down and undid her collar. He had just let go, but Han Yunqi unconsciously wrapped her arms around him again. She couldn't help but murmur, "Long Fei Yi." It was precisely this murmur that caused the delirious Long Fei Yi to suddenly stop. He looked at her, a faint trace of helplessness flashing across his eyes. But it quickly disappeared. He bit her, then stood up and looked at her. "Are you still laughing?" Han Yunqi's courage was still limited. How could she dare to laugh? She obediently shook her head. She had almost misfired. No matter how brave she was, the consequences. All right, she didn't dare to imagine. Long Fei Yi was very satisfied and said mildly, "Rest well for the next few days. Don't run around before Gu comes." Han Yunqi's heart thumped. She knew that he would bring up this matter to her sooner or later. She wasn't sure how much of what he said last time was said out of anger and how much of it was true. "You also think that he will come?" Han Yunqi asked. "Do you think that he won't dare to come?" Long Fei Yi countered with a double meaning. "Let's take a gamble." Han Yunqi smiled faintly. "I bet that he'll dare." Han Yunqi's dare had a double meaning as well. "This prince is also betting that he'll dare to come," Long Fei Yi said. There were some things that both sides had a tacit understanding of. Han Yunqi got off the bed and chatted casually. "Since Imperial Physician Gu is here, if we can get Mu Linger to stay at Pilfiend Pharmacy, then Qinxia won't have to worry about it anymore." Han Yunqi wanted to expand Pilfiend Pharmacy and nurture it into a major power in the medical world. However, she really didn't want to trap herself in Pilfiend Pharmacy. After all, medicinal ingredients weren't her forte, nor was it her interest. Her forte lay in poisons, but what she was most interested in was what Long Fei Yi planned to do next after throwing Tianning into chaos. If his target was Medicine City, then perhaps she could use this chance to learn more about Madame Mu Axayan from Muingdong. Mute Granny was already a thing of the past, so there was no point in worrying about it. On the other hand, Muingdong, who'd imprisoned Mute Granny, must know a lot. Long Fei Yi was rather surprised. He'd always thought that Han Yunqi wanted to personally manage Pilfiend Pharmacy. "Then what do you want to worry about?" Long Fei Yi asked. "I want to worry about what Your Highness is worried about. I want to share Your Highness's burdens." Han Yunqi was serious. Long Fei Yi, who'd been wearing an unsightly expression this whole time, actually smiled. "I don't need you to worry about me." "Don't worry." How could he not worry about anything that was in his heart? How could he not worry about it? Han Yunqi smiled as well. "So you're saying that I'm meddling in other people's business?" She hadn't noticed that he'd used the word "I" multiple times. He also hadn't noticed that whenever he referred to himself as "this prince," she'd refer to herself as Qinxia. Apart from that, she was calling him by his name more and more often. However, He did notice that this wasn't the first time he'd been rendered speechless in front of this woman. In the end, he coughed lightly a few times and said, "Do as you wish." If his subordinates heard these words, they'd probably stay awake for 3 days straight. Who in the world could really control His Highness Duke of Qin? Gu's matter seemed to have been glossed over in a few words. However, just as Long Fei Yi was about to leave, Han Yunqi couldn't help but say, "Your Highness, no matter what, Qinqia's life was saved by him. If he dares to come, I hope that Your Highness will think thrice before acting." Long Fei Yi paused for a while before leaving. Han Yunqi's eyes flashed with a complicated light as she followed him out. However, she saw that Long Fei Yi didn't seem to have any intention of leaving Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea. He'd only gone to the pavilion in the garden. 7 days. It couldn't be considered long, but it couldn't be considered short either. Han Yunqi thought that Long Fei Yi would confine her to Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea and go out by himself. However, Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea seemed to be her paradise. Ever since she'd come here, Long Fei Yi had never left her behind. This time was no exception. Long Fei Yi and she settled down in the small hot spring villa. Although secret and urgent letters were delivered to them every day, Long Fei Yi didn't leave even half a step. The entire world was talking about Pill Fiend Pharmacy, but the two of them seemed to be on vacation, leisurely and carefree. Neither of them brought up Gu's matter again. Late autumn was approaching and the weather was getting colder. It was the best time to start soaking in the hot springs. Besides tea, hot springs were Long Fei Yi's favorite things to do. If he wasn't waking up in the morning or afternoon, he'd soak in the hot springs and sip tea in the midst of the mist. Last time, Han Yunqi had secretly noticed this habit of his. This time, she'd chosen to soak in the hot springs at noon or late at night. Yes, she really liked hot springs too. In the past, she'd always chosen to sneak into his quarters when he wasn't there. Every time, she'd been on tenterhooks, much less in an open pool like the hot springs. But now she'd grown bolder. Whenever she soaked in the hot springs, she'd take a nap. Tonight, she soaked in the water again and leaned against the side of the pool until she fell asleep. But suddenly, a figure flashed past the surrounding trees and landed outside. It was so quiet that Han Yunqi didn't notice it at all. Outside, Chu Shifeng clutched his chest and forced himself to stand up, his expression blank. He'd just returned and was in a rush to report to His Highness, but he'd been kicked to the ground before he'd even reached the hot springs. Of course he recognized the kick as His Highness's, so he was at a loss. He hadn't done anything wrong recently. Very soon, Long Fei Yi emerged with his hands behind his back and slowly descended from the roof. "Master." Chu Shifeng felt wronged. "Who allowed you to come in as you please? If there's a next time, you'll have to bear the consequences," Long Fei Yi said. Chu Shifeng looked back in the direction he'd come from and suddenly realized what was going on. He'd just come from the back of the hot springs, where the hot springs were. Thinking up to here, Chu Shifeng's back grew cold with lingering fear. Fortunately, his martial arts were trash and he hadn't flown out of the woods. Otherwise, but could it be that the more they quarreled, the more intimate they became? Why are they fighting like this tonight? One is soaking in the hot springs while the other is standing guard. Chu Shifeng was quite quick-witted at times. He quickly said, "Your Highness, matters at Medical City aren't urgent. This subordinate won't disturb you any longer." Long Fei Yi had sent Chu Shifeng to Medical City to investigate Gu's past. Logically speaking, he should be anxious to know the situation now. But Chu Shifeng's words only made him wave a hand, indicating that he should withdraw. Chu Shifeng was a little flabbergasted. Actually, he'd only wanted to curry favor with the man, but Chu Shifeng gave a start, while Long Fei Yi retorted coldly, "Still not leaving?" Chu Shifeng almost thought he was dreaming back to the Plum Blossom Sea, so he left in a daze. After making sure Chu Shifeng was gone, Long Fei Yi lightly leapt onto the roof of the hot springs again. The night was still and silent, its moonlight like a wash. Steam filled the hot springs as a beautiful woman slept. Although he was paying attention to the person in the springs, he was mostly paying attention to the movements around him. His face was cold, firm, silent, ascetic, stubborn, and frigid. Like the mysterious night, it was impossible to see through him. Was he guarding or spying? Truthfully speaking, guarding was more like spying, but when? Chapter 5:13. When the person in the pool woke up and stretched out her arms, Long Fei Ye's attention unconsciously focused on the pool. The woman was like a lotus flower emerging from the water as she lazily stood up. As soon as she left the water, she stopped being lazy and nimbly wrapped herself in a bathrobe. Her movements were fast, but Long Fei Ye's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as they locked onto his prey. He was domineering, unbridled, and scrutinized every inch of her body, not letting go of a single detail. Even if it was the most private part of her body, he wouldn't take his eyes off her. His heart wouldn't skip a beat, and his face wouldn't turn red. As it turned out, there were times when His Highness Duke of Qin really wasn't a gentleman. Only the heavens knew how bad he would be once he let go of all his worries. How bad? In short, for the next few nights, Long Fei Yi examined Han Yunxi thoroughly. The shrewd Han Yunxi was completely oblivious to all of this. She only felt that the hot spring she soaked in these past few days had been too comfortable. She even wanted to build an outdoor hot spring in the prince's estate in South Ning City. Who knew what Han Yunxi's reaction would be when she found out the truth many years later? Of course, that was assuming that Long Fei Yi wouldn't tell her. Time flew by, and soon it was the 6th day. In one more day, Mu Ling's challenge to Gu Qi Sha would arrive. Unfortunately, whether it was Jiangnan's Plum Blossom Sea or Pill Fiend Pharmacy, there was no news of Gu Qi Sha. Could it be that he really didn't plan to show up? Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi had returned to South Ning City the day before. Mu Ling would arrive the next day, but unfortunately, there was still no sign of Gu Qi Sha. If he wanted to accept the challenge, wouldn't he have come to Pill Fiend Pharmacy long ago? After closing, everyone gathered around the tea table to rest and discuss. The first to speak was Su Xiaoyu. Let's make a bet. I bet that ghost won't show up. How rude. There's no way His Highness Pill Fiend won't show up. Zhao Mama immediately reprimanded, our Pill Fiend Pharmacy relies on His Excellency Pill Fiend's reputation. If he doesn't show up this time, not only will he lose face, Pill Fiend Pharmacy will also lose face. Granny Zhao had previously been very disdainful of His Excellency Pill Fiend, but ever since His Excellency Pill Fiend and esteemed Wang Fei had cooperated to open the store, and their group had come over to help, her attitude had completely changed. He was proud of Gu Qi Sha. I'm guessing that she might not come. It's not that she's afraid of losing. She might really look down on Mulinger. As Madame Hellion spoke, she added, I still hope that he'll come. I've heard of his name for a long time, but until now, I've never seen him in person. Mother, I also hope that Grandpa Pill Fiend will come. I want to learn how to concoct medicines from him. I still have many questions that I want to ask him. Little thought for a moment, then said, Mom, if Grandpa Pill Fiend doesn't come, he'll be laughed at, right? Young Master His Excellency Pill Fiend wouldn't mind how the world views him. I heard that he always does things his own way. Not everyone can have that kind of unfettered temperament that disdains the world. Chen Xiang's face was filled with admiration. It's hard to say whether he'll come or not. That kind of person's personality is hard to fathom. Bailey Mingxiang also spoke up, then looked at Gu Beiwei. Dr. Gu, what do you think? After Gu Beiwei moved into Pill Fiend Pharmacy, his title as an imperial physician was officially removed. Everyone called him Divine Dr. Gu, but he would always take the trouble to correct it to Dr. Gu. After a few days, everyone had gotten used to it. Gu Beiwei didn't directly answer Bailey Mingxiang. Instead, he looked at Long Fei Yi. Your Highness, what do you think? After all, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi were the most reticent people in the room. The fact that Gu Qisha was Gu Beiwei was only known to the two of them, as well as a few of Long Fei Yi's subordinates. At this moment, everyone was in a heated discussion. None of them were aware of the situation. Long Fei Yi was expressionless. What do you think? This humble one thinks that Lord Pill Fiend won't come. Gu Beiwei finally gave his opinion. Why? Long Fei Yi asked. You don't think much of Miss Mu. Gu Beiwei gave a very neutral answer. It was as if he hadn't said anything at all. Long Fei Yi couldn't be bothered to look at him again. Instead, he smiled faintly, but it was a meaningful smile. Long Fei Yi was sitting with such a large group of people because he wanted to accompany Han Yunxi. However, he didn't like the fact that everyone was talking at once. Just as he was about to leave, Gu Beiwei asked Han Yunxi as if on purpose, Esteemed Wang Fei, what do you think? Han Yunxi lazily stood up and stretched. We'll find out tomorrow. Let's disperse and go to bed early. Go to bed early. Only the heavens knew how many people were tossing and turning in bed until dawn. Mu Ling'er was definitely suffering from insomnia. At this moment, the bright moon was hanging high in the sky. She was sitting on a swing in the courtyard next to Pill Fiend Pharmacy, swaying back and forth. Her mind had long since wandered off. She had been living in this courtyard since the day she issued the challenge. The Mu family and even those from Medicine City's Council of Elders clearly knew that she was here, but they couldn't approach. There was no doubt that Han Yunxi had sent hidden guards to guard her. Han Yunxi didn't say anything, so she pretended not to know. However, she tacitly accepted it. With her personality, how could she casually accept help? However, ever since Han Yunxi told her that secret, she didn't have much of a temper. As she swayed back and forth, Mu Ling'er suddenly stopped. She seemed to have thought of something and a sweet smile appeared on her face. Her smile filled the air with the smell of honey. When the sky was still hazy, Xiao Mama came out of the side door to buy groceries. She was surprised to see a woman in thin clothes standing at the door. It was none other than Mu Ling'er. Xiao Mama jumped in fright. Wasn't she a little too early? In reality, Mu Ling'er had been sitting at the door for 2 hours and had only just stood up. She was excited. When she saw Xiao Mama come out, Mu Ling'er, who had always been displeased with Han Yunxi's people, actually smiled at her in a very friendly manner. Xiao Mama couldn't bring herself to smile back. After looking at her for a while, she immediately ran into the back courtyard to look for Gu Beiwei. Dr. Gu. Dr. Gu, that girl from the Mu family isn't crazy, is she? What's going on? Gu Beiwei was quite nervous. She's already standing at the door, yet she's still smiling at me, Xiao Mama said seriously. Gu Beiwei was surprised at first, but then he smiled. That's normal. She's nervous for something this big. Only then did Xiao Mama relax and leave through the back door. By the time Xiao Mama returned, Pill Fiend Pharmacy was already open for business. There was already a sea of people at the entrance, and it was bustling with noise. The scene was much larger than it had been during the opening ceremony. Mu Ling'er was still standing at the same spot at the front door of Pill Fiend Pharmacy. She had only set a date, but not a specific time, so she didn't know whether Gu Qisha would be coming or not. The entire place was bustling with noise and excitement, and everyone was talking about this matter. Not long after, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi also arrived. However, they didn't show themselves. Instead, they sat in the garden behind Pill Fiend Pharmacy and waited. Unexpectedly, they waited until noon, but Gu Qixia still hadn't shown up. Is Gu Qixia inside or not? Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei is inside, right? Give us a definite answer. Don't make everyone wait. Is Gu Qixia coming or not? He won't really not come, right? There were all sorts of questions and even quite a few goads. Gu Qixia, come out. Is a little girl enough to scare you to this extent? Don't you have any guts? Your Excellency Pill Fiend, that little girl has been standing there for half a day. Even if you look down on her, you should at least give her some face. There were even some who took the opportunity to cause trouble. Are you messing with us? If you don't come out now, I'll never come to Pill Fiend Pharmacy again. What's so great about him? He thinks too highly of himself. I think this is just a publicity stunt. He's really putting a lot of thought into this. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi naturally ignored these voices. However, it wasn't long before Bailey Mingxiang arrived. Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, the head of Medicine City's Medical Materials Association has arrived. Su Xiaoyu immediately reported, Your Highness, esteemed Wang Fei, Medical City's Council of Elders has sent a few disciples to pay their respects. Very soon, Chu Shifeng arrived as well. Your Highness, that fellow Ouyang Ning Nua is here too. He's sitting right here in the shop. Long Fei Ye's lips rose into a cold smile, but he didn't speak. Han Yunxi seemed to grow impatient as she waved a hand. If they're not going to fill up their prescriptions, then let them be. They can do whatever they want. Logically speaking, for such a sensational challenge, Han Yunxi should have invited the heavyweights of the medical community to preside over it as judges and referees. Then she'd invite a few related guests to watch the match. No matter how the process went, she could at least use this chance to get to know a few important figures and expand her network. But Han Yunxi had been spending the past few days with Long Fei Yi on vacation and hadn't given it much thought. Now that important figures and powers had come knocking on her door, she wasn't even entertaining them. Fine, she really wasn't in a good mood right now. Gu, are you coming or not? She waited all afternoon. But Pill Fiend Pharmacy didn't say anything, nor did Gu Qixia show his face. Gradually, the restless crowd quieted down. More and more people arrived, but not a single one of them left. After all, it wasn't dark yet. After all, Mu Ling had been standing there all day without saying a word. As the sun set in the west, Han Yunxi gazed at the rosy clouds with a serious expression. Gu, do you have the guts to come or not? Actually, she wasn't confident at all. With Gu's free and easy personality, how could he care about what the world thought of him? How could he be provoked so easily? If he was happy, even if the whole world despised and condemned him, he would still do as he pleased. If he was unhappy, he would despise the whole world. She had teamed up with that silly girl Mu Ling, to set up this trap just to give Gu a way out and an excuse to return to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Gu, weren't you unable to chase him away before? This time, do you dare? Are you willing to write off all our grudges and take control of Pill Fiend Pharmacy? Seeing Han Yunxi's disappointed expression, Long Fei Yi sneered, even if this prince wants to repay him for saving my life, he has to have the guts to come and claim it. Han Yunxi still remembered Long Fei Yi's angry words. However, she was certain that Long Fei Yi didn't owe Gu anything, so this was a chance to settle all their grudges. Unfortunately, he wasn't coming. Long Fei Yi had secretly sent people to search for Gu, but they couldn't even find a trace of him. He'd repay Gu Qixiao's kindness to Han Yunxi, but he'd also clear up the grudges between them. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to come. As the sun set, the sky gradually darkened. Time was running out. Goo, where are you? Chapter 5:14. The sky gradually darkened and the lanterns were about to be lit, but Gu Chi-sha still hadn't shown up. Due to the incitement of the troublemakers, Pilfiend Pharmacy's entrance was currently filled with a boiling cauldron of voices. All sorts of urging, accusations, and questions rose and fell, making it seem like Pilfiend Pharmacy owed them something. Finally, Han Yunxi walked out. As soon as Han Yunxi appeared, the voices grew even louder. Esteemed Wang Fei, is Gu Chi-sha coming or not? Give us a definite answer. Gu Chi-sha is still half a master of Pilfiend Pharmacy, right? Esteemed Wang Fei, why don't you admit defeat in Gu Chi-sha's place so everyone can disperse? We've been waiting for an entire day. These people really wanted to see the world burn. Han Yunxi didn't ask them to watch the battle, nor did she ask for their tickets, so what were they complaining about? Han Yunxi was already in a bad mood. Just as she was about to retort, Long Feiyi walked out. He stood behind her with an icy expression, causing the clamoring crowd to shut up. They didn't dare to make a fuss. As expected, His Highness Duke of Qin's aura was different. However, these people quickly pointed their spears at Mu Ling. Don't overestimate yourself, Gu Chi-sha won't come. He doesn't care about you at all. Why does the 9th Miss of the Mu clan have to make herself look like a clown? If it were me, I would have left long ago. Don't make a fool of yourself here. Little girl, say something. Don't tell me you've gone silly from waiting. Of course she's stupid. If she wasn't, why would she challenge Gu Chi-sha? Isn't that right, everyone? Amidst the roaring laughter, Mu Ling lowered her eyes and remained motionless. Her petite and slender figure seemed especially lonely in the crowd of over 100 people. However, her straight back exuded an unyielding stubbornness that couldn't be ignored. She waited. Everyone here had only waited for a day, but she had waited for many years. What was there to be stupid about? She was willing to be stupid. Amidst the commotion, she sneaked a glance at Han Yunxi and winked mischievously, as if hinting for her not to lower herself to the same level as these people. If they didn't know the truth, they would be the most foolish ones. Han Yunxi was originally upset, but when she saw this, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. She didn't know what to say to this girl. She felt distressed and helpless. At this moment, Han Yunxi felt a little regretful. She should not have set this trap. If Gu really didn't come, what would Mu Linger do? Finally, the sky darkened and the lanterns were lit. Pilfiend Pharmacy was filled with glorious lights. Although they did not set a time, Gu Chi-sha did not show up even though the sky was already dark. Let's go back, what a bummer. I've waited all day in vain. Gu Chi-sha is such a coward. You don't even dare to show your face. Let's go, let's go. Gu Chi-sha is afraid of even a little girl. I think his reputation is undeserved. The onlookers began to leave one after another, and it didn't take long for half of them to leave. Han Yunxi suddenly felt as though the concert had ended and the crowd had dispersed. Even though she didn't want to believe it, the truth was the truth. Gu Chi-sha hadn't come. A few middle-aged women walked up to Mu Linger and patted her on the shoulder, trying to persuade her out of goodwill. Little girl, let's go back. You've been standing all day, your body will collapse from exhaustion. Silly girl, it's already dark. Lord Pilfiend won't come. Wake up. Mu Linger lowered her head and didn't move or make a sound. The women sighed helplessly and left as well. Mu Linger was surrounded by 100 people, but now that everyone was leaving, she seemed even more lonely. Her thin and small figure stood there as straight as a ramrod, as if she was waiting for the heavens to pass away and for the world to change. Han Yunxi's heart ached when she saw this. Just as she was about to walk over, a strange and terrifying laughter rang out. A black shadow suddenly descended from the sky like a large bat. Ha ha ha. Jia jia. Jia jia. The laughter seemed to come from the depths of hell. At times, it was strange and sinister, at other times, it was filled with hidden bitterness, and at other times, it was unbridled and unbridled. The sound grew louder and louder until it filled everyone's ears and lingered in their ears. This sound. Everyone was shocked. Those who had left all turned around to look, and there were even a few who quickly turned back. At the entrance of Pill Fiend Pharmacy stood a tall black shadow directly opposite Mu Linger. Gu Qi Sha had come. Mu Linger finally raised her head and almost cried out in surprise. Fortunately, Han Yunxi gave her a look in time to remind her to calm down. Han Yunxi secretly sighed in relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Long Fei stared coldly at Gu Qi Sha as his lips curved into an unreadable smile. Only the heavens knew what he was planning, but there was nothing he could do right now. Gu Qi Sha had to fight Mu Linger. In just a short while, Pill Fiend Pharmacy's entrance was once again surrounded by onlookers. This time, the entire place was silent and no one dared to make a sound. This was because at this moment, Gu Qi Sha was arrogantly sizing up Mu Linger. "Little girl, how do you plan to challenge this daddy?" he asked disdainfully. Mu Linger must have been prepared for this, so she quickly replied, "I want to compete with you in the efficacy of my pills." As soon as these words came out, not to mention the experts present, even the laymen who were here to watch the show burst into laughter. Had this little girl really thought it through? Although there was a great disparity in strength, this little girl should at least be a little more serious. She should have found something unorthodox to compete with, at least she wouldn't lose too badly. Moreover, everyone knew that the disparity in strength was too great, so they had come to watch the show. First, they wanted to see Pill Fiend's glory with their own eyes, and second, they wanted to see Mu Linger show off some of her skills. Who would have thought that she would actually want to compete in efficacy? To compete in efficacy, it was nothing more than making the same type of medicine on the spot and then competing to see whose medicine had the better efficacy. This was the most basic skill of an alchemist, and at the same time, it was also the biggest standard to distinguish an alchemist's abilities. For medicine in the form of pills, the same type of medicine and the same formula would naturally have the same basic medicinal effect. However, minute differences in dosage, water usage, temperature, strength, timing, and other such details would cause differences in the efficacy of the medicine. For example, the speed at which the medicine took effect, the magnitude of the side effects, and so on. These aspects could not be learned, and could only be learned through experience. How could Mu Linger compete with Gu Qi Sha? What was there to watch? What was there to be suspense about? "Little girl, are you sure?" Gu Qi Sha asked playfully. "Very sure." Mu Linger was very certain. "I'll decide on the method of the competition, and I'll ask Pill Fiend to provide the formula so that it won't be unfair." Gu Qi Sha laughed heartily. "Unfair, ah. Yes, since we're going to compete, it has to be fair. I'll ask Pill Fiend to provide the formula." Mu Linger was very serious. Seeing her determined attitude, the crowd began to whisper amongst themselves. Is this little girl really that confident? She doesn't look like a fool, she might have come prepared. She's still a member of the Mu family, after all. If she hadn't come prepared, would that old schemer Muing Dong have allowed her to embarrass herself here? After all, they had been waiting for so long, so everyone was looking forward to the competition. Even if Mu Linger had some kind of ultimate move, they still wanted to see the old and young prodigy's pharmaceutical skills. Gu Qi Sha looked at Han Yunxi. "Little poison, give me the formula." Han Yunxi thought for a moment, then took out a long formula. I'll take this, the 100 purging pill. As soon as she said this, the crowd burst into laughter. The 100 purging pill was a laxative. Because it could expel the toxins in the body in one go and was made from a mixture of 100 different medicinal herbs, it was named the 100 purging pill. Although it was a laxative, it was the highest grade of laxatives and also the most difficult to concoct. Han Yunxi was still very biased towards Mulinger. The more complicated the concoction process was, the more opportunities Mulinger would have to find. If only 2 medicinal herbs were needed, then it would be very difficult for Mulinger to increase the efficacy of the medicine. After all, no one knew what Han Yunxi and Mulinger were scheming, so everyone felt that Han Yunxi was being very fair. As for Gu Qixia, he was used to being bullied by Han Yunxi, so he did not think much of it. He only wanted to end this competition as soon as possible. Since he had come, he had decided to settle the score with Long Fei Yi. He had no time to mess around with that damned girl Mulinger. What are you laughing at? Who wants to try it? Step forward. Han Yunxi shouted. Needless to say, a group of people immediately stepped forward. Regardless of whether it was Mulinger or Gu Qixia's concoctions, they were all highly sought after. What's more, they could eat it for free. Gu Qixia and Mulinger each chose a test subject for the other. One had to know that different constitutions and health conditions had a great impact on the efficacy of the medicine. In a sense, their competition began with the selection of test subjects. Everyone watched quietly. Many of the experts were especially attentive because they did not want to miss this opportunity to learn. But who would have thought that Gu Qixia would randomly choose a test subject? Mulinger was even more casual than him and chose the person closest to her. So fast. It was possible for Gu Qixia to see through a person's constitution at a glance, but what about Mulinger? Not to mention the others, even Xie Dei, the head of Medicine City's Council of Elders, was shocked. Mulinger had left Medicine City for more than a year, so how could she have improved so much? It was truly inconceivable. Presumably, the following process would be very exciting. Who knows, this girl might even bring a pleasant surprise to everyone. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's workers quickly set up the refining table and provided 2 sets of the same ingredients and various utensils according to the prescription. Mulinger and Gu Qixia both stood in front of the refining table. The crowd was tense as the competition was about to begin. Just as the two were about to begin, Han Yunxi suddenly shouted, "Wait!" Gu Qixia wasn't impatient, but rather helpless. Mulinger's eyes flashed with craftiness, but she pretended to be arrogant. Qin Wangfei, if you have any other requests, please speak. Since it's a challenge, there must be a winner and a loser. What if you lose? Han Yunxi asked loudly. What if I win? Mulinger retorted. The two of them were only putting on a show for Gu Qixia to see. Gu Qixia had long known about the challenge agreement. As he saw it, Han Yunxi had been goading him on purpose all along so she could take Mulinger into Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Thus, Gu Qixia wasn't too surprised by Mulinger's arrogant attitude. This girl couldn't withstand provocation, so this kind of reaction was normal. But all of the spectators were stunned. Seeing Mulinger's attitude, they felt that this girl wasn't simple at all. She'd always been prepared just in case. If you win, you can name any conditions you want. If you lose, you can only serve Pill Fiend Pharmacy from now on. Han Yunxi said seriously. All right. Mulinger coolly agreed. With this agreement, Chapter 5:15. Mulinger's agreement was met with a chorus of disbelief. Such harsh conditions were equivalent to betraying the Mu clan and Medicine City. This girl actually agreed. This girl is definitely capable. Even those who didn't like Mu Ling were shaken. Perhaps there would be a miracle in the medical world tonight and Mu Ling would win against Gu Qisha. Hidden in the crowd, Mu Dong was so angry that the veins on his forehead were bulging. He didn't know what Mu Ling was up to. However, he smelled a strong conspiracy. Han Yunxi was trying to steal from the Mu clan. Damn it! Although he was angry, Mu Dong remained indifferent. He glanced at President Xia, who was standing in front of him. A glint flashed in his eyes, but he suppressed all his anger. Then, please begin, Han Yunxi said with a smile. In an instant, more than 100 pairs of eyes were focused on them. Everyone was nervous and expectant. The concoction was about to begin. Gu Qisha slowly revealed his bony hands while Mu Linger leisurely rolled up her sleeves. Silence fell upon the scene as the atmosphere grew tense. Everyone's attention was on the pair's every move. However, Mu Linger's hands suddenly moved and swept across the ingredients on the table. She placed them into a pestle and mortar and then plucked them like she was playing a zither. Her other hand covered the opening of the pestle and mortar. Not long after, she removed a small black pill from the pestle and mortar. However, Gu Qisha's speed was even faster than hers. He didn't even use a pestle or a mortar. In any case, no one present could see clearly what had happened. All they knew was that his terrifying hands had grabbed the medicinal ingredients, and with a flick of his wrist, the medicinal ingredients had disappeared and turned into a few small pills. It only took a few moments for the pills to come out. That's it. After all, everyone had waited for an entire day and it was only a few moments. Moreover, they didn't even see anything clearly. What a scam! They could only comfort themselves that they had seen an expert concoction before. Although everyone was disappointed, they were still nervous. After all, the process wasn't important. The result was the most important. Mu Linger was very likely to bring a surprise. Han Yunxi personally took the 2 pills and held them up high for everyone to see. These 2 pills, regardless of their size or color, were exactly the same. There was no difference between them and the pills on the market. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the medicine testers took the medicine at the same time. The air was filled with tension, and the whole place was so quiet that even the sound of the medicine testers swallowing could be heard. They had all taken it. Gu Qisha's medicine tester's eyes widened in shock as his body trembled. He immediately clutched his stomach and ran towards the toilet at a speed that could be described as disappearing in the blink of an eye. The 100 purging pill was a laxative, but it wasn't a simple laxative. It wouldn't take effect so quickly. Even if one ate 300 purging pills on the market at once, it would still take about 2 hours to take effect. Of course, no one cared about that at this moment. Because, the person who took Mu Linger's medicine had yet to react. Therefore, Mu Linger sighed softly and calmly said, "Hee, Your Excellency Pill Fiend, I've lost." Han Yunxi snickered at the side, but Gu Qisha didn't react at all. All the spectators were dumbfounded. That's it. Is it going to end just like that? Mu Linger was so arrogant and confident, but she lost just like that. Why are you still so calm? It's one thing to not see the process of making the medicine, but the result of the competition. There's no suspense at all. Mu Linger, are you trying to trick us? We've been waiting for an entire day, and we've all been looking forward to it. The result left all the spectators speechless. Gu Qisha gave Long Fei Yi a meaningful look, then finally walked into Pill Fiend Pharmacy. The instigators, Han Yunxi and Mu Linger, looked at each other, their eyes full of smiles. Han Yunxi said seriously, "Mu Linger, you've lost. You'd better keep your word." As Mu Linger watched Gu Qisha's back, her heart was filled with joy. Just as she was about to speak, a harsh voice stopped her. Mu Linger, hurry up and follow the old man back to Medicine City to suffer. Mu Linger was stunned. Turning around, she saw a man in his 60s with a head full of white hair and a stern face. This person was the head of Medicine City's Council of Elders, Xie Dei. He was so fierce that she almost thought it was her father. Who would have thought it was this old man? While Mu Linger was still in shock, Han Yunxi immediately sensed danger. Mu Dong hadn't made a single move despite the commotion, but now Head Xie had personally appeared. Medicine City had its own council of elders, and its members were all highly respected pharmacists in the city. Most of them were from the three great clans, but there were also people from other smaller clans. The Council of Elders had the authority to handle many internal affairs of Medicine City, and they could also represent the city to outsiders. Due to the incident at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, Mu Linger had been constantly troubled by the Council of Elders. Mu Dong had been unable to withstand the pressure from the Council of Elders, and in the end, he had chosen to imprison Mu Linger. Although the Mu family had quite a bit of influence in the Elders Guild, they still didn't have the absolute advantage. Moreover, it was rare for the Mu family to be exposed, so the other powers in the Elders Guild would definitely collude to bite them and not let them go. Head Xie's words of suffering were undoubtedly still harping on Mu Linger's actions at the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. Head Xie walked out from the crowd, followed by more than 10 expert guards from different directions. They surrounded Mu Linger. "Girl, you've already been on the run for a year. Go back with the old man and suffer," Head Xie coldly said. Mu Linger subconsciously retreated, but Han Yunxi immediately stepped in front of her to protect her. Long Fei didn't move, but he coldly watched. Gu Qixia, who had just entered the door, slowly turned around. A bet is a bet. From this moment on, Mu Linger is a member of Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Do you want her to go back on her word, Head Xie? Han Yunxi asked. He, Qin Wangfei, this girl is a sinner to begin with. Medicine City has put her on the wanted list for a year, so any promises she made to you are null and void. Head Xie's tone was unyielding, leaving no room for negotiation. Qin Wangfei, old man, requested an audience before the competition began, but you refused to see the old man. Now, in front of everyone, don't blame the old man for not giving Pill Fiend Pharmacy any face. Hypocrite. I didn't see him before, but didn't Han Yunxi come out after that? If Head Xie truly wanted to negotiate and stop the competition, he would have had plenty of opportunities to talk to Han Yunxi before Gu Qixia arrived. But he just had to wait until this critical moment. Now that the situation had escalated to this point, everyone was paying close attention to the situation. Mu Linger had lost, so the news of her promise to stay in Pill Fiend Pharmacy would soon spread. Head Xie's decision to talk about her so-called freedom in front of everyone was undoubtedly a show of strength to Pill Fiend Pharmacy, leaving Han Yunxi with no chance to salvage the situation. Moreover, he wanted to use the momentum of the challenge to blow the matter up even more. None of the onlookers expected things to turn out this way, so they quickly broke out into discussion. Cold laughter filled Mu Dong's face as he hid in the crowd. He was naturally the one behind Head Xie's personal appearance. He wouldn't show himself, so he waited to see what Han Yunxi would say to Head Xie. He wanted to see how Han Yunxi would interfere with Medicine City's internal affairs in front of so many people, especially those from the same circle. If he personally came out, then this matter would only be the Mu clan's internal affairs. But if Head Xie came out, then this matter would be elevated to the level of Medicine City's internal affairs. In any case, the agreement had already been signed, and the evidence from the black market was already in her hands. She wasn't afraid of Han Yunxi revealing anything. If Han Yunxi did, then her own reputation would be ruined as well. Mu Dong's smug words were exactly what Han Yunxi was considering at this moment. At this moment, whether or not Mu Linger could work for Pill Fiend Pharmacy was secondary. Han Yunxi knew very well that Muingdong's decision to not come out and instead had Head Xia come out was the same as cutting off all means of retreat. He would rather lose his daughter than benefit Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Just think about it. Mu Linger was a pharmaceutical genius who was envied and hated by countless people in Medicine City. If she fell into the hands of the Council of Elders, would she have a good ending? Mu Linger knew this better than anyone else. Han Yunxi, I'm begging you. Save me. She whispered, her voice trembling slightly. If it was before, then she wouldn't have cared. At worst, she would die. But now that she knew the secret, she was afraid. She wanted to live. She wanted to live happily in Pill Fiend Pharmacy for the rest of her life. Han Yunxi also wanted to save her, but Head Xia's words just now were reasonable. In front of so many people, it was very difficult for her to protect Mu Linger. If she forcefully interfered, then she would be criticized by the world and tarnish Pill Fiend Pharmacy's reputation. Moreover, if she openly went against Head Xia, then she would be publicly making an enemy of Medicine City. Many things would be difficult in the future. Seeing Han Yunxi's silence, Head Xia said coldly, "It seems that Qin Wangfei is a sensible person. Someone come, take Mu Linger away." Wait. Han Yunxi finally spoke up. Head Xia, during Empress Dowager Li's birthday banquet, Mu Linger made a mistake because we are close friends. This girl has been on the run for more than a year and has suffered a lot. Why don't you give this princess consort some face today and give her a light punishment? As for her promise to Pill Fiend Pharmacy today, we can forget about it. Han Yunxi was very courteous as she made a concession. What do you think about this? As long as Mu Linger was safe, she could think of a way to deal with Pill Fiend Pharmacy later. However, Head Xia didn't budge an inch. It's rare for esteemed Wangfei to be so reasonable. This girl doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and showed off her slight skill in front of an expert, affecting Pill Fiend Pharmacy's business. Old man will apologize to esteemed Wangfei on behalf of Medicine City. As for the punishment, Medicine City has its own rules, so there's no need for esteemed Wangfei to worry about it. As he spoke, he gave a look to the guards, who immediately stepped forward to arrest Mu Linger. At that moment, Long Fei Yi and Gu Qisha walked over at the same time. Long Fei Yi asked, "How does Head Xia plan to apologize on behalf of Medicine City?" Gu Qisha coldly replied, "Does Head Xia mean that you plan to apologize to this old man? You set up such a grand scheme and lost to this old man, yet you still refuse to honor your promise. Medicine City, don't be so shameless." It was rare for Long Fei Yi and Gu Qisha to be on the same side. However, Head Xia didn't hold back and said, Chapter 5:16. Even when facing Long Fei Yi and Gu Qisha, Head Elder Xia didn't hold back. He said, "Your Highness Duke of Qin, Mu Linger has been wanted by the Council of Elders for a long time. You should be aware of this. Today's challenge is her personal matter and has nothing to do with Medicine City. Old man is only apologizing on behalf of Medicine City because of you. If Pill Fiend Pharmacy insists on keeping her, then don't blame Medicine City for not giving your Highness face." These words were directed at Long Fei Yi. As for Gu Qisha, Head Elder Xia didn't even look at him. This made Gu Qisha extremely displeased. His figure blurred as he suddenly appeared in front of Elder Xia. He was practically right in front of Elder Xia's face as he coldly asked, "Do you believe that I won't destroy your entire Medicine City?" Head Elder Xia lived up to his reputation as the leader of the Council of Elders. His expression didn't change as he coldly replied, "If Pill Fiend Pharmacy wants to become enemies with Medicine City over this matter, then Medicine City will accompany you to the end." I'll kill you right now. Gu Qixia immediately raised his bony claws. Long Feiyi furrowed his brows and looked towards Han Yunxi, as if asking for Han Yunxi's opinion. Han Yunxi knew that the most logical thing to do right now was to stop Gu Qixia, but she hesitated. She wanted to slap this old thing to death even more than Gu Qixia did. Head Elder Xie didn't move even though Gu Qixia was about to make a move. It was as if he had steeled his heart to believe that Gu Qixia wouldn't actually attack. However, Gu Qixia didn't hold back. His palm came crashing down on Head Elder Xie. At this critical moment, Mu Linger suddenly rushed out from behind Han Yunxi and pushed Gu Qixia away. No! I'll go back with him. Gu Qixia's palm hit nothing but air. Head Elder Xie finally realized that Gu Qixia wasn't just bluffing. His heart was filled with lingering fear, but he didn't show it. Despite his fear, Mu Linger's compromise only made Head Elder Xie even more domineering. Men, take her away. No need, I can walk on my own. Mu Linger was a crybaby. At this moment, she really wanted to cry, but she held it in. Gu Qixia's tall figure was enough to strengthen her resolve. Qi brother, we'll meet again in the end. She was already sobbing silently in her heart. She really wanted to hide behind him for a while longer, but she still gritted her teeth and resolutely strode out from behind him. Goodbye, Qi brother. Ling will miss you every day. Han Yunxi, goodbye. Actually, I've always wanted to call you sister. Stinky girl, you want to leave after losing to me? Get the hell back here. Gu Qixia shouted angrily. Mu Linger turned to look at Han Yunxi. Clearly, she wanted Han Yunxi to persuade her. The secret that Gu Qixia was Qi brother was revealed to her by Han Yunxi. She knew that as long as Han Yunxi spoke, Qi brother's anger would be extinguished instantly. Han Yunxi was the most rational woman in the room. She knew the severity of the situation. As expected, Gu Qixia also turned to look at Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi didn't say anything. She really did know the severity of the situation. Mu Linger was in the wrong first, and Pill Fiend Pharmacy couldn't claim any justice. This Head Elder Xie had clearly come prepared. If Gu Qixia attacked in front of everyone, Pill Fiend Pharmacy would undoubtedly be attacked by the entire medical community. Long Feiyi had enough power for her to rely on, but there were too many people who wanted to take advantage of the situation to hit her while she was down. She could only blame herself for trying so hard to help Mu Linger hide it from Gu, but she had neglected Medical City's Elder Council. Han Yunxi was still silent when Long Feiyi, the calmest of them all, coldly said, "Guards." As soon as he spoke, more than 20 black-robed hidden guards appeared and surrounded the crowd. He didn't waste any time and raised his eyebrows coldly at Head Elder Xie. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. He wouldn't back down on this matter. Han Yunxi was overjoyed. Since Long Feiyi had shown such an attitude, she had no choice but to throw caution to the wind. Unexpectedly, many of Medicine City's guards stepped out from the crowd and surrounded them. Both sides faced each other with swords drawn. The atmosphere was tense. At that moment, a familiar voice called out from the crowd, "Everyone, stop." An old man walked out. He wore a gray robe, had a white beard, and had a benevolent face. Seeing this, Gu Qixia let out a sinister laugh. Head Elder Xie was very surprised. He quickly walked over and bowed politely, "Third Elder Shin, you've also come." Only then did everyone realize that this old man was the third elder of Medical City's Elder Council, Shin Jueming. Pill Fiend Pharmacy's reputation was truly impressive. Even Medical City's third elder had come. Medical City and Medicine City were like one family, but Medical City's strength wasn't something that Medicine City could compare to. Shinjueming's status as the third elder of Medical City's Elder Council was enough to make head elder Xie Dei show some respect. His polite greeting clearly showed his superiority. Third elder Shin nodded at him, then turned to Guqi Sha and said, Guqi Sha, this old man thought that you had already turned over a new leaf when you were able to open a pharmacy and sell medicine. I didn't think that you would still be so impudent and ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. If you dare touch a single hair on head elder Xie's head, Medical City won't let you off. Ha ha ha. Guqi Sha threw his head back and laughed with disdain. He extended his terrifying claws towards third elder Shin and said, I'll accompany you to the end. What, Medical City and Medicine City are joining forces to bully a small pharmacy? Han Yunxi's voice was cold. She appeared angry, but a trace of amusement flashed through her eyes. Qin Wangfei, you've misunderstood. Old man only taught a lesson to a traitorous disciple of Medical City. Pill Fiend Pharmacy sells medicine and does good deeds. Old man admires you. Third elder Shin stroked his beard and continued, there's no need to ruin Pill Fiend Pharmacy's reputation because of a little girl. If the two of you don't mind, then listen to old man's words. Let's each take a step back and turn a big problem into a small one. At his words, head elder Xia quickly interjected, may third elder Shin preside over justice. Medicine City wasn't afraid of trouble, especially since they had Medical City as their backing. Han Yunxi had arrogantly made a bet with third elder Shin because of the crown prince's illness. She had long offended third elder Shin. How could third elder Shin give her a good time to eat? Since third elder Shin says so, then this Wang Fei will give Medical City some face. Han Yunxi gave in as well. She shot Guqi Sha a look, who unhappily withdrew despite his reluctance. Third elder Shin thought it over before he said, Mu Ling provoked us first and was defeated later. Since we've spoken first, then it's reasonable to. Before he could finish, head elder Xia grew anxious. Third elder Shin, Mu Ling was all ready. Third elder Shin gave him an unhappy look. Old man hasn't finished speaking yet. If head elder Xia is dissatisfied, then old man can just ignore it. I don't dare. Head elder Xia was resentful. Han Yunxi saw this and knew that this old thing was very difficult to deal with. Third elder Shin continued, since we've spoken first, then Mu Ling should fulfill her promise. However, she's not a free woman to begin with, so we can forget about her loyalty to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. As old man sees it, we'll punish her to come to Pill Fiend Pharmacy every 3 months to make up a prescription as an apology. As for Medicine City's internal affairs, esteemed Wang Fei shouldn't get involved. This was a unreasonable arrangement. Everyone present gave their approval, but head elder Xia wasn't satisfied. Make up a prescription every 3 months. What's the difference between that and being loyal to Pill Fiend Pharmacy? With Mu Ling's skills, she could only make up a single new prescription in 3 months, or even improve a single one. An ordinary pharmacist might not be able to make a single prescription in 2 or 3 years. Third elder Shin's expression darkened as he angrily said, It's your Medicine City's fault for not teaching properly in the first place. The entire world knows about the challenge. If head elder Xia only wants to apologize, then old man can't do anything about it. As he spoke, he bowed to Han Yunxi and prepared to leave. Head elder Xia hastily stopped him. Third elder Shin, please wait. We'll do as you say. He originally thought that Shinjueming would use this opportunity to scheme against Han Yunxi, but who would have thought that Shinjueming would be so fair? If he had allowed Han Yunxi to make the first move, then Han Yunxi would have made a grave mistake. But now that third elder Shin had intervened, if he didn't give in, then it would have made him seem unreasonable and lose his bearing. But none of this was important. Medicine City would lose Medical City support on this matter. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Qin Wangfei, what do you think? As third elder Shen spoke, he gave Han Yunxi a meaningful look. Han Yunxi was well aware of the severity of this matter and the severity of the consequences. Since third elder Shen had already intervened, she had no choice but to agree even if she didn't want to. If she allowed Mu Linger to visit once every 3 months, then they would at least know how Mu Linger was doing in Medicine City. Medicine City's Council of Elders wouldn't take advantage of this opportunity to take her life. After some hesitation, Han Yunxi finally nodded. Fine. Out of respect for third elder Shen, I won't pursue this matter any further. Head elder Xie snorted disdainfully at her words and coldly ordered, men, take her away. Mu Linger turned to look at Gu Qi Sha and loudly said, Gu Qi Sha, wait for me, all right? As soon as the people from Medical City arrived, Gu Qi Sha's heart was filled with nothing but hatred. He didn't even look at Mu Linger as he casually replied, why should I wait for you? Wait for me to come back. One day, I'll definitely defeat you. Mu Linger said earnestly. It wasn't clear if Gu Qi Sha heard her clearly, but he snorted disdainfully and ignored her. Mu Linger smiled helplessly. Just as she was about to leave, Han Yunxi shouted, Pill Fiend Pharmacy welcomes you to challenge us again at any time. Definitely. Mu Linger replied domineeringly. She didn't allow the guards to take her away and strode away without saying a word. Everyone was in awe of this little girl's unyielding character. Gu Qi Sha, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes and stared at third elder Shen. Mu Linger's figure had already disappeared into the crowd, but he was still staring at her. Now that Mu Linger had left, the matter was over. Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi didn't even bother to look at head elder Xia as they turned around and entered the store. Sooner or later, they would seek revenge from head elder Xia for what happened today. Han Yunxi's only wish was that Mu Linger would be a little smarter and not try to show off and suffer. Head elder Xia wanted to invite third elder Shen for a drink, but third elder Shen unexpectedly declined and entered Pill Fiend Pharmacy instead. Head elder Xia could only drop the subject and leave. Once the parties involved had left, the onlookers also dispersed. Muing Dong was chatting with a tall and imposing masked man. Ouyang Ning Nuo followed them from a distance and muttered to himself suspiciously, Jun Xie. Regardless of who this masked man was, Muing Dong must have some ulterior motive for allowing the Mu clan's genius to fall into head elder Xie's hands. At this moment, inside Pill Fiend Pharmacy, third elder Shen was drinking tea and discussing business with Han Yunxi and Long Fei Yi. Outsiders all assumed that third elder Shen and Han Yunxi had a grudge against each other, but they didn't know that third elder Shen had remembered Han Yunxi's kindness because of the Gu incident. Third elder Shen was actually biased towards Han Yunxi. Third elder, it's all thanks to you today. Han Yunxi sincerely expressed her thanks. Esteemed Princess Consort, you're being too polite. This old man is here today because he has something important to tell you, third elder Shen said in a low voice. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.